Blood might be thicker than water.
For years I used to say my dad is quite well known in the UK, and for years I was my father's son.
But it isn't thicker than ideology.
I'm ice and fire, she's fire, I'm ice.
And now I've become my wife's husband.
While Lord Michael Farmer occupies the red benches of the House of Lords as a pillar of the Tory elite, his son George is 4,000 miles away, bankrolling a political insurgent that threatens his father's legacy and raising a political pundit that rivals only Nigel Farage. George Farmer didn't just fail in British politics, he outgrew, realizing that most failed politicians fade into obscurity. George Bollington Farmer did the opposite. He bought a microphone. By exporting the blueprints learned from Nigel Farage to the far bigger stage of America, Farmer proved that the real power in the 21st century doesn't come from winning a seat in parliament. It comes from owning the platforms, the pundits, the purse strings of the transatlantic ride, or, like I like to put it, transatlantic Bollington chaos. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please like, share, subscribe. And my name is Nemo, allegedly. Let's get into the video.
For those of you who know my wife, you'll know that she enjoys getting into trouble herself. So I'm quite used to this.
After I spoke to him, I was like, oh, Candace has no chance.
George Farmer ventured into British politics, failed publicly, but behind the scenes, he outgrew it, exporting a playbook he learned from Nigel Farage to a big stage in America, creating mini Nigel Farages in the American systems. If you've been part of my channel for any time, you will recognize that I have had my suspicions that Candace Owens and Andrew Tate are two products of George Farmer, and George Farmer learned the playbook he implemented with these two characters from Nigel Farage. We have established his relationship with Nigel Farage in part 1 of this video, explaining and expressing all the characters who have all been hiding behind the scenes when it comes to Candace Owens going to Britain and her connection to the British political system before ever meeting George Farmer. If you've not watched that video, I encourage you to go watch it, because continuing with this one will leave you a little confused with certain connections, because everything is about connections. Connection. Once you fill out the connections, you can see and understand the little undertones that people are trying to hide away from you. And you will realize that when someone just tells you this happened, it did not just happen like that. There are a few intricacies behind the scenes that you will get to understand by understanding all of those connections. In part 1, we discussed Brexit, we discussed Blexit, we discussed Candace Owens. And now, for this part, I would like us to dive a little deeper into George Bollington Farmer. George Bollington Farmer was born in July 1990, depending on who you ask, because his birthdays have been swiping here and there. We are not exactly sure, but that is a minute detail. I don't think it is hurting anyone's life, so we let that. His father, a billionaire conservative peer and a party treasurer, is an important person when it comes to George Farmer's life. And in part 3, we are going to look into Lord Michael Farmer. I've been doing research on this man, and it is a dynamite. Once you look at Lord Michael Farmer, you understand George Farmer even more. If you have to understand George Bollington Farmer, you have to look at Lord Michael Farmer. From 2010 to 2014, George Farmer attended Oxford University. Like I've said, I've done a breakdown of George Farmer's life from beginning to end, from the time he was born, schools and everything. Go watch it on the channel. I think that's one of the videos I have done on George Farmer. I've done his full biography a couple of times, so go watch it. 2010 to 2014, he attended the University of Oxford. He becomes a member of the Bollington Club, this elite rowdy dining society, which people like Boris Johnson have been part of. If you did not watch the video on George Farmer and the chaotic transatlantic chaos him and his wife are causing because of the Bollington Club interactions or relationship, I urge you to go watch that video. It is a dynamite. You are going to understand Candace Owens' playbook so much more. Once George Farmer attended Oxford, joined the Bollington Club, that same damn year, he said he was going to convert into Catholicism. He found God. And I have always asked this question. Candy baby, I need you to put it into perspective. How is it your husband man joined the Bollington Club and Catholicism the same year? How did they make sense? Listen, this man went to school in Oxford to study theology. Okay? Theology. Then during that time, he converts to Catholicism, and then he decides also, as the person who has converted to Catholicism, studied theology and understands right from wrong. Oh yeah, I also feel like I should join the Bollington Club. We've discussed that on his channel a couple of times. You can go watch all of the videos. I will link them all. September 2014, George Farmer becomes the Honorable George Farmer after his father is elevated to the House of Lords. Remember, when I did the video on him of George Farmer and Candace Owens' marriage, in the introduction of them after they are wedded, they say, I now present to you.
I present to you Honorable George and Candace Farmer.
So I was wondering, oh, is it comfortable? I've finally gotten to understand that yes, the title can be converted to their sons. That is why George Farmer is now called the Honorable George Farmer. This provides him with establishment legitimacy.
For years, I used to say my dad is quite well known in the UK, and for years I was my father's son, and now I've become my wife's husband.
While he begins plotting anti-establishment moves, and that particular thing, these moves combined with his Bollington Club will come back to bite him out in the ass very soon. This is the phase between 2018 to 2019 when George Farmer is heavily involved in politics and also following Nigel Farage around the United Kingdom in politics. They are fighting for Brexit. They've been working on Brexit before now even, but this time Brexit is getting heated and George Farmer is working with Nigel Farage. This is why in part 1 I asked you all. Candace Owens had met Nigel Farage twice. Known Nigel Farage, knows his work. She actually was inspired by Nigel Farage Brexit or fight for Brexit to create her own Blexit, the movement of the blacks from voting Democrat for them to now vote conservative.
The best judgment of a character is how people act before you are somebody. And I was an absolute nobody, sprinting around CPAC 2 years ago, trying to give my card and my name to everybody, rushing to be on radio shows. And there was a guy backstage who was very nice to me. And I looked at him and I said, oh my gosh, that's Nigel Farage. And you were just the happiest, nicest person in the entire world. And I said to myself, this is the guy that's leading Brexit. And in that moment, I said, in America, there needs to be a Blexit. So you really are the source, not only of the Brexit movement, but of the Blexit movement in America.
Oh, I loved your energy.
She understood and knew who this man is, and she wants to convince us that she left America after meeting this man twice and him inspiring her to create her own Blexit. She did not know of a certain young gentleman who works with him hand in glove in the United Kingdom. Just a question. Maybe she didn't, but I find it highly unlikely that she will not know of that gentleman, because any character I know who has certain things they do and those people are around them, there are certain people around them, close proximity to them, I definitely know that these people are in their orbit. And if I'm interested in that person so much that I create a mini organization that is inspired by this person, definitely I know him. I know his entourage. And George Farmer was a huge entourage of Nigel Farage. So all those stories of Candace Owens telling us that before heading to the UK, she did not know George Farmer. He was just a stranger that she didn't know. I call BS on that. Capital BS on that. Candace Michael Farmer, or is Candace Bollington Farmer, you knew about George Honorable Farmer before reaching there. Please. This is what happens. In 2018, Candace Owens wakes up, tells Charlie Kirk, I want us to go to the United Kingdom. Charlie is like, what are we going to do there? She says, no, I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my spirit that we should go to the United Kingdom. So Charlie wants to resist. She takes the man's credit card and buys a ticket for them to go. And when they head to the United Kingdom, what were they heading for? To launch Turning Point UK. Remember, Charlie has been running Turning Point USA in the United States for a long time and met and hired Candace Owens 10 minutes after meeting her in the United States. And Candace Owens was working as director of urban engagement. And there was a very interesting caveat to her hiring, which we discussed in the first part. Just around the time Candy Baby was hired, there was a slew of racist things coming out of the backbones of people Charlie Kirk had hired working for Turning Point USA. And one of those people is still working with a real George to date. That lady said she hates all black people. She doesn't want to hear about them. F them. And she is still working with a George. So during that time when all of these things were happening, Charlie Kirk hired Candace and Candace was working with him. So that is how Candace woke up. In her director of urban engagement situation, she told Charlie, let's go to the United Kingdom. Before Charlie could open his eyes and say two, she bought the tickets. There is something that was chasing Candace to go to the United Kingdom. She said she doesn't know. She knew what she was going to the United Kingdom for. Remember, listen to the people who are part of the people invited for this launch of Turning Point UK. We have people like John Mappins. We have other people who are part of the United Kingdom. We also have someone like Nigel Farage and his entourage. So, are you trying to tell me that Candy Baby didn't know that Nigel Farage, who was one of the few people who made videos promoting the launch of Turning Point UK, as popular as he is, and giving the people he works with, he will not come with those people for that event? You think Candy didn't know that? Okay, let's assume she didn't. Please, fool yourself, not me. I don't believe it. When they go to the UK, how they met? They met at the Royal Automobile Club in London, and then Candy says she meets George Farmer for the first time. Now, that meeting, you can judge it the way you want. But this is another problem with the meeting of Candace Owens and George Farmer. It's not just that she claims she did not know anything about George Farmer before getting there. It is the number of people who have been called people who brought them together. I remember hearing her tagging Russell Brown, the Christian who he cannot do a podcast without leaving his chest out. He has to have his chest out, all his chest beard, you can count them. His tights are all out, right down to these to the inner tights. You have to see everything for him to do that Christian podcast he does. These other info war guys, she said, oh, Alex Jones, why you're running around insulting me? Don't forget that you're the one who introduced me to my husband. I'm like, lady, how many people are we talking about here? How many people? John Mappins, the person who is linked to all kinds of things. If you want us to do a video on John Mappins, we can do it. But the man is linked to all kinds of things. Remember when Charlie Kirk expired and then Candace Owens was having a lot of backlash online? Do you remember the only people who wrote a public letter telling the FBI to release all information to Candace Owens, for Candace Owens and her team to do the investigation? Yes, that John Mappin is one of the people who organized this opening of Turning Point UK. He He was one of the donors.
In our view, the official investigation should be immediately ordered by the appropriate legal authority to proactively share everything they know with Candace and her selected team.
Her husband. And John Mappin has also claimed that he is one of those who introduced Candace Owens to her husband. You know what? There is a lady who did a very good job at explaining this meeting. Please, I am not going to waste time. Let's have her explain this. If you know her name, please let me know. I couldn't find her name. I found this video on someone's page called Kraus. And I don't know if she's the one who is the author of the video, but it seems she just posted it. So if you know the author of this video, please let me know and I'll link it and give their credits below.
Candace Owens and George Farmer have not been able to collaborate effectively on what to tell the public about their relationship and how they met. Candace Owens has credited several different people for introducing her to George Farmer. She credited Russell Brand for introducing her to George Farmer first.
And apparently he asked you to marry him 19 days after you met, which is very English.
Yes,
That
Russell
kind of-
Brand was our Cupid.
Really?
Yeah, he was.
Well, let's hear this, because I'm fascinated. 19, so what happened? You guys meet where?
So a buddy of
This is George, your husband.
Yeah, Turning Point UK was hosting an event. George was there. I didn't get to meet him. I then went to do Russell Brand's podcast on the countryside. And through a lot of miscommunication, nobody had told me that my now husband was hosting a massive dinner with like major players in politics, like Douglas Murray was there that night, all of these fantastic people. So I was 3 hours late because I was with Russell Brand doing his Under the Skin podcast. And this is amazing because this is when he was a communist, this was the old Russell Brand. And then my assistant kind of comes in and is like, there's a massive dinner for you. And I'm like, I have to go. There's a random guy named George Farmer hosting a dinner for me. Jumped in the car, went down to Belgravia, 3 hours late, and my husband's just plying everyone with red wine. Like, is this woman even coming? And I don't know, I just locked eyes with him and just knew that I was going to marry him. It was totally insane. Literally, and it's funny because his best man then read the text messages that George was sending to him, like, I'm going to marry this girl. And I was sending messages to my assistant, like, I'm going to marry this guy.
From that night?
Like, locked eyes. If this is like a true rom-com story featuring Russell Brand, yeah.
Was it just the accent, Candace?
No,
you can be clear.
Everyone had an accent.
Do you find this accent irresistible? Is that where we are?
Americans do like an English accent,
I know.
so I will say that it is a plus. But everyone there had an accent. It was just his face. He didn't even speak to me. He was so nervous. And then he flew to meet me the following week at Turning Point USA's big conference they have every December. And it was just, I just knew. It was the strangest thing. And then he proposed to me. We didn't even kiss, nothing. Didn't even know if he had a girlfriend. And
You've not even had a date, really?
we didn't even have a date. We had our first kiss in Terminal 5.
Really? That's very romantic.
It is.
It's like Love Actually.
It is Love Actually.
But John Mappin, who has ties to Jeffrey Epstein, also takes credit for introducing Candace to George Farmer. And Candace has openly given him credit to introducing them. It reads, that auspicious and star-crossed night on 11th December 2018, when you, Candace, and Charlie first arrived in London to launch Turning Point to this nation and changed our lives' trajectories, including that of TPUSA. When George arrived at this TPUSA function, I recall uttering the now memorable words, I don't believe you have met Lord Farmer's son, Candace. One has made a few introductions in one's time, but the introduction of Turning Point to the United Kingdom that night, the introduction of Charlie's and your philosophy and way of thinking, and most joyfully our introduction of you to your loving husband George ranks up there for sure. This account by John Mappin completely contradicts the story that Candace Owens told Piers Morgan. Candace gives another good story. Alex Jones telling his audience my husband is MI6 is hilarious. Guess he left the part out where I met my husband through InfoWars host Paul Joseph Watson. Here's a picture from that fateful night in December of 2018. Candace Owens gets very defensive when confronted with the inconsistencies of her stories pertaining to her meeting her husband. So she strings together all three instances of them being introduced in 2 days, where they're somehow introduced over and over and over again without actually being introduced, to then falling in love at first sight, or technically second sight. But that's not how George Farmer recalls it.
That I meet her. So she was giving a speech in London, and she was giving a speech at the Royal Automobile Club, which is a club in Pall Mall in London. And I was in the audience. We met, we shook hands, and I just knew kind of, when I met her, I was like, this is a woman who, she just commanded a power. It was very difficult to describe. Nothing romantic was said, you know, between that day and the day that we got engaged. Nothing romantic was said at all. You know, there was no overtures. Like we didn't go for dinner. Like we didn't take it. Nothing.
Send her flowers.
No, nothing. Yeah, nothing. Exactly. And
so just to give everybody context, we got engaged after 2.5 weeks, maybe?
I think it was about that time. Yeah,
right.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, whirlwind romance, I believe.
I know.
Nothing had been said. Like there had been no romantic overtures at all at any of this point. It had all just been very kind of above board and talking about politics and engaging in kind of philosophical conversations. And then at the end of December, we started. I called her a couple of times just to kind of chat, and again, you know, just had these long, like, prolonged conversations, which were mainly about politics and trying to understand what she wanted to do in life. And at the end of December, I was actually flying to South Africa at the time for New Year's, and I called her and I just said, listen, I know this is completely crazy and we've just met, but how do you feel about getting married to me?
Just real quick. I missed the bit where there was any sort of...
There was literally nothing romantic had been said up to this point.
Okay.
I mean, literally nothing.
So I missed nothing.
We hadn't gone on a date. We had not talked about marriage or the future or anything like that.
All right.
And and she said yes.
No.
Yeah.
Come on.
She did.
That didn't happen.
Yeah,
You're making it up.
Now, to be fair to Candace and George, they have both stated that they did not have any romantic date, no kisses, no I love yous or you love me, or do you want to be my boyfriend kind of thing before they ever got engaged. Honestly, it is not so strange to hear of a couple get to engagement that fast. The number of days doesn't matter. 17 days, it could be 2 days. It could be 50 days. It could be 2,000 years. We have seen couples who got engaged faster than that or slower than that, and they ended up being terrible couples. They are not good couples. They ended up in divorce, or they are fake couples. And we've also had couples who courted long enough according to societal norms, and they ended up not lasting well. And we've also seen couples who engaged themselves in 2 days. Some couples saw themselves the first day on their wedding day, and they are still happy together. They grew to understand each other, grew to understand what a partnership is. And this is the thing. If you understand the basic reason why marriage was created, especially in the British context, listen, British people were still marrying their cousins, especially the elite, right up to the certain, let's not talk about this too loud. So it is not strange for them to have such arranged marriages where someone meets someone who is eligible, someone who is a good spouse, they match and they make up the relationship and they go together and they stay together. They might fall in love with each other or they might not fall in love with each other. They will understand each other and whatever happens. That is their damn business. And you also have others who will date for 2 or 3 years, fall in love, and they get married. 2 minutes later, they are toxic to each other. They don't want to see each other anymore. It is over, done and dusted just as fast. So when it comes to the number of days they met, how they met, whether they got engaged before saying I love you, I don't really think that is a huge thing, because when you look at how many marriages are arranged, especially in terms of the British, the British elites, yeah, and also in Africa, in Asia, there are a lot of arranged marriages, and it's not because of some Malays, no. It is just because 2 families found their children to be eligible to get married. They've looked compatible, and they said, you know what, let's do this thing. And that is it. Candace Owens' relationship with George Farmer. they are meeting and getting married. It's not a big alarm for me, the 18 or 17 days to their engagement. It's not a big alarm to me. I have seen that before. We've seen that before, and people are still happy. And we've seen people date normally and they are sad as hell. This is my trouble. How many people introduce you two together? That's the question I have. You cannot tell me 1 minute it is Russell Brown, the next minute it is this, the next minute we just locked eyes. One of the things is that they locked eyes. It was not an introduction. Candace said she saw the man across the room. She locked eyes with him and she knew, I'm going to marry that man. The next minute it is Alex Jones and somebody from Alex Jones camp that introduced them. The next minute is John Mappens. The next minute it is too many people, which tells me that there is something they are hiding about their union. And listen, I'm one of those people who is always hoping that these two are a real couple. They look cute together. I don't know what people see. They always look cute to me together until I started looking into them and started seeing the discrepancies in the kinds of things they say and the way they act and talk about to each other. That's when I started saying, oh God, what's going on here? Am I wrong? What's going on? Because naturally, I've always liked them as a couple. They look cute, I don't know how they are together. I don't know. George is just giving quietness, but after knowing the Burlington Club agenda the man has, oh Lord, the man is scary to me. I can tell you, George Farmer is not a quiet, innocent man sitting behind the scenes. He is a master of transatlantic chaos. So when you look at those things, those are the things that bother people. People getting engaged in 17 days is not a problem. It's normal. And he proposed via FaceTime. Some people's parents proposed to them. You find a woman whose father-in-law or mother-in-law proposed to her, listen, will you marry my son? And they said yes. And the marriage is okay. There's no big deal going on. They understand themselves and they are living together happily, having babies, and their life is going together. So whether he proposed via FaceTime, there are many people in the world whom, if you know how they first came to telling each other, will you marry me? Or yes, I will marry you. It will be a funny story. It's just unfortunate that theirs is in front of us, which makes it a little bit something we would dive into critically and enjoy all the nuances of it. But at the end of the day, that he proposed on FaceTime or that they got engaged 17 days later, it's not a big alarm clock. The question here is the raison d'etre. Why did they get married? Did they get married because they found themselves to be compatible to get married? To say, you make sense. Say, yeah, you two, you make sense for me. Let's get married, have 62 babies. Because Candace Owens said she's about to be producing babies until the Lord tells her womb to stop. She and George, they are not using any contraceptive. It is not my mouth. That is what Candace said. They are not using protection. They are just going according to the number of eggs the Lord has put in both of their bodies. As George's activities are activating and her body is activating, they will keep colliding and producing until the Lord says, it's enough, my children. For now, there are many people who get to that and there is no problem. Theirs is the reason why. Was their union forged for transatlantic chaos, or was it forged because they were two compatible people who just met and it made sense for them to get married? Because people always have this confusion of thinking that because two people met and thought, they are compatible to get married, and it did not involve all the love sharing and lululuing, it is not a legitimate marriage or it's not a real marriage. No, there are people who don't want to fall in love for getting married. They want to get married. And there are people who want to fall in love before getting married. And if they don't fall in love, they'll not get married. And it's imperative, it's important that we have the understanding and respect for each person's reasons. Now, when it comes now to a political marriage that is forged to cause transatlantic chaos, to cause problems in the world, now that's where we have to open our eyes and I wonder what's going on here. Plus the other aspect of the allegations that have been levied against George and even Candace Owens. Because if it's Candy Baby is gonna dig deep. If it is another person, she will look into it. But I prefer to be fair, because there are certain aspects people take about her marriage and they just make everything now just look foolish. Because if you have to make certain things look foolish, now any good point you bring up will not even sound reasonable anymore. People will just take that point, because there are people who just take but the terrible points and use it to discredit every good point you have brought up. So I always try to see that, okay, we can look at the places where there are natural nuances in the world, and then we can look at the places where we're like, Candy Baby, this is not making sense. I want us to look at this timeline once more, because there is someone I want us to include into it. In December 2018, Candace Owens asked for Charlie Kirk's credit card, buys a ticket, they'll go to the UK. Then she allegedly meets George Farmer for the very first time. They set eyes on each other. December 29, 2018, 18 days after that meeting, George Farmer proposes to Candace Owens via FaceTime. He had visited her in her hometown and come back, then proposed the question when he was heading to South Africa and said, you know what, if this plane goes down, I would like to propose, will you marry me? And she said yes. Remember this, shortly after this engagement of theirs, Candace Owens goes to a very important trip. But let me pause you on that trip first. In 2016, Andrew Tate participated in the Big Brother show UK in 2016. In 2017, Andrew Tate moved to Romania because he believed that Romanian authorities would be less likely to pursue allegations of sexual assault if anything happens. He goes there. That is in 2017. 2018, shortly after Candace Owens and George Farmer are engaged, guess where Candace Owens goes? She goes to Romania, where she meets with Andrew Tate and his brother. She has even spoken about it, how she went there and her then assistant, who was Romanian, told her that guy is a pimp. I think it's a pimp. Yeah. And that was her then fiance's best friend, or one of his very best friends, and who had just moved to Romania just a year earlier, because he was trying to ensure that when him and his brother carry out the activities they have been carrying out, because they have been doing what they call online with women. We discussed this already on this channel a long time ago. Him and his brother have been carrying out those kind of activities, webcamming activities, since 2012. He was doing it in the UK, but by 2017 he realized that the type of activities he's carrying out can put him in trouble in the UK. He left for Romania. And then after Candace Owens and George Farmer get engaged, shortly after that they go to Romania. You see how this is working? Do you remember when Andrew Tate blew up on the internet? Okay, don't worry, we are coming to that. Launches and Farmer becomes the chairperson. The rollout is famously mocked. Like we've said, you cannot be saying that you are launching a grassroots kind of organization and you carry a big Burlington Club elite son of Lord Michael Farmer, the elite of elite, and you put in the front pipe of that in the name of a chairperson, and he was running the foreshadow of everything. It was a full sham. People made fun of him. They made fun of Turning Point UK's launch so much, primarily because of George Farmer's participation in that launch. He was a terrible mix inside. Nigel Farage was not a problem. He was normally part of the far right. Yes, he gets his donors, and George Farmer has always been one of the people who put money on him. But then, when George Farmer engaged himself too publicly in something like Turning Point UK, it called for a lot of mockery online. The memes were memeing. It was so funny. Some of those accounts are even still active till date. The accounts that were making fun of George Farmer after the launch of TPU UK. In 2019, George Farmer stands as a candidate for Nigel Farage's Brexit party in southeast England. Guess what? He is not elected. What was he thinking? Well, it has happened before, so maybe he was thinking it could happen for him. But I believe that his running was not to win a seat, but it was to prove to Nigel Farage that I am ready to be part of this new right movement we are forming. So you don't have to worry. If it means putting my name on a ticket, even if I don't win, I will put my name on that ballot box. Let me know what you think was the reason George Farmer ran for this position, even if he did not see himself winning, or if he thought that maybe he would win because he had the backing of Nigel Farage, this guy who is running Brexit. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, especially the British. Americans, please be quiet. He is not elected, but he spends his time campaigning and traveling with Nigel Farage, learning the insurgent playbook with Nigel Farage. Did I tell you that he went and talked to Andrew Tate just after engaging in 2018? Yeah, good. So while he's learning the playbook of Nigel Farage, he goes and sees his friend and says, no, my friend, in my mind, this is now all conspiracy land. We are in Candy land right now. Say, you know what, my friend, I'm learning the ropes from Nigel Farage. Because he was asked in an interview, who do you think sparked all this new right and all this outrageous political movement? He said, Nigel Farage. So when he learned it, he went and called Andrew Tate. He said, well, my friend, you see this internet thing you're doing? You're about to blow up. I'm learning the ropes, and when I'm done, you will see. And he made Andrew Tate to blow up. On the 31st of August 2019, Farmer and Owens marry at Trump Winery in Virginia. Nigel Farage was present as guest of honor, cementing the political union. Let's look at phase 2, the tech and media expansion phase, that is between 2020 and 2023. These are key important parts. In 2021, Farmer is appointed CEO of Parler, the free speech social media app, following the firing of its founder after the January 6 Capitol riots. In October 2022, Farmer facilitates a deal for Kenya West Ye to buy Parler. The deal eventually collapses after Ye's controversial public outbursts. Also in 2022, around November, journalist Rahim Kasim, a former aide to Nigel Farage. Remember, Nigel Farage. The reason I took my time explaining the connections of these people in the first part is so that you see how each person fits in the puzzle. Rahim is not just a random person. He is a respected journalist and former aide to Nigel Farage. And he went public with allegations of sexual assault against George Farmer in late 2022, saying that George Farmer had made unwanted physical advances, including groping, kissing, during a social encounter.
One of the biggest rumors on X amongst the conservatives is that Candace Owens and George Farmer have a sham marriage that was forged for political reasons. That George Farmer is actually gay, Candace Owens may be bi, and that their marriage was created for business and political endeavors. One of the biggest founding allegations that support these rumors comes from Rahim Kassam, a British political activist, former editor-in-chief of Breitbart News in London, and former chief advisor to the former UK Independence Party leader Nigel Farage. Rahim is outspoken about his allegations against George Farmer. He says, "Don't get me wrong, I think it's cringe, and so is that fraud Candace Owens, who blocked me for telling the truth about her sham marriage. I called her out on her hubby trying to grope me and kiss me multiple times. She blocked me for it. He is gay. I am straight, hence the complaint." Rahim mocks Candace Owens' quotes in an article and says, "Trad wife my ass, by the way. Still remember when she was slamming cocktails while her husband 5 feet away was trying to grab my crotch. Freak shows. I know more about this world than I care to. Mercer tried to get me to tell Bannon to shut up about populist nationalism. I was the guy who hired Milo at BNN. Farmer has essayed me. Candace blocked me for calling her sham marriage out. I know this from all angles. He responded to a comment saying, well, when your husband is a homosexual, that makes for a difficult marriage. But if you support that kind of thing, I'm happy to lose you. The Anani bots are mad because I don't care for George Farmer's beard wife and her falling out with her neocon paymakers and am instead focused on how Trump can win in November. Candace Owens is a grifting bisexual who is gay boy George Farmer's beard actually mutual. I don't know anything about her content on Israel or whatever this nutter is talking about. Can't say I've ever seen her show, and I've loathed her. These aren't the allegations coming from an anonymous person on the internet. This is coming from a well-respected British political commentator in the conservative movement based in London, which is exactly where George Farmer comes from. Here is George Farmer pictured with Nero, who is considered a far-right groyper. But the groypers are known for something else. Being closeted, anti-Semitic, anti-woman, which are views Candace Owens has picked up since marrying George. It's been said many times from many people that Candace and George's marriage was for political business reasons. Interestingly enough, they had a MAGA wedding despite the fact that Candace Owens no longer supports Donald Trump. Listen as Dom Lucra, a former Blexit employee, talks about Candace Owens and George Farmer.
George wanted to buy Parler. Parler said, "F off, you ain't got no ties to the conservative movement. We're not letting you buy this. You could be a raging leftist, and you're not from America." Mm-hmm. Nigga married Candace Owens. He got that shit in a few weeks, and then guess what they tried to do? They tried to add Ye. Ye didn't like the deal, and he somewhat started beating with George over it. These people aren't what they seem. I mean, even her husband, man, like, I actually got proof that could ruin that nigga life. Like on some real, I could show y'all my text. So I got proof about that nigga that.
Some of these allegations are just wild. Candace Owens being bi, I don't know how that makes sense. Well, maybe there is someone somewhere who has some experience with her. We would like you to come forward. But until then, please, people can stop. When we now exaggerate this, it makes no sense. For that of George Farmer, yes, we have someone who has come forward to complain that, okay, George did this to me. And we also had Milo Neapolis, who is constantly outing people. You can't trust Milo's words for anything, but he also had mentioned some time ago that Candace Owens' husband is gay. Yeah. So we don't know. Now she is cool with Milo, so we don't know how his stands are on him regarding his sexuality. Lord, these people. Let's move forward. Also in 2022, do you remember who was one of the most Googled guys in the world? Besides Amber Heard and her husband man who were causing chaos? Yes. Andrew Tate became one of the most Googled men on earth. In 2022, George Farmer had practiced and learned the ropes, and he was already in phase pundit activation. In September 2023, Farmer is appointed to the board of directors of JB News, All Perspectives Limited, the channel where Nigel Farage hosts his primary show. This completes the loop. Farmer is now Farage's boss and benefactor, and Farmer sponsors Farage. Farage goes out there and makes it big time. Now, we cannot go as far as saying that George Farmer is the main creator of Niger, because Niger has been a pundit long before, when George Farmer was still a baby, thinking about his teenage years. But there is something about Nigel Farage and George Farmer's coalition from the time they collided that changed something. And George Farmer practiced something with Nigel Farage, which he now took and implemented first, in my opinion, on Andrew Tate. And second, who was Mrs. Worldwide in 2025?
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please, because today is obviously a day of celebration. Yes, in case you missed it, we officially have become the #1 podcast in the world. Not in America, okay, not in Europe. I am talking about in the world. And the haters stay mad.
Haters. Candace Owens worked, like we've already said, she was working with Turning Point UK when they went to the UK and met her husband. Shortly after they came back from the UK, she was fired from Turning Point USA. She went to work with PragerU. She worked with PragerU where she interviewed also Nigel Farage, her husband, Charlie Kirk. After that, after a while, they parted ways. Then Candace Owens started working with the Daily Wire. She worked with the Daily Wire for some time too. In 2024, Candace Owens converted to Catholicism. And, she is cementing herself as this traditional wife who is also Catholic. Yes. In 2024, Candace Owens is ousted from the Daily Wire following a feud with Ben Shapiro. George Farmer is credited as her chief strategist and Supreme Court, as she calls him. She said, I have to go and seek orders from the Supreme Court of George Farmer during this time as she transitioned to independent media. So she has left from working for herself with her little YouTube channel like me here, which, by the way, blew up unexpectedly, leading to so many speculations that probably there was a hand behind the scenes that touched her platform and her eventual career. Speculations where she had her red pill black. She created a website to dox teenagers, and that website was cried. Everyone decried it and said, no, you cannot dox children like this or people like this. She left it. Then she started creating content as Red Pill Black online. She was writing articles, and some of those articles are quite interesting. Some of them were talking about how women were marrying gay men and how cheating is romantic. Candy baby, were you trying to tell us your future? Or allegedly. So she went from that. She worked with Red Pill Black. She created videos, went viral. Then she met Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin had a show where Dave Rubin introduced a few people who are blowing up on the internet on her show, The Dave Rubin Show. Candace Owens was one of the people she brought on the show. And then in one political event, Dave Rubin introduced Candace Owens to who? Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk hires Candace Owens after talking with her for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, depending on how you ask it. I don't know. I wasn't there. Please leave me alone. They hire her. It was a matter of minutes. Candace has a track record of convincing men into doing things within few minutes to an hour to a day, few days. Within minutes, Charlie hired her to be director of urban engagement, and we discussed already in part 1 the scandal that was ongoing in TPUSA during that hire, which tainted the hiring of Candace Owens and made it look like she was doing house cleaning. Then she went to the UK with Charlie Kirk to launch TPUK in 2018. Then she met her husband. Depending on who you ask and what time of the day, the people who introduced them or how they locked eyes would differ. The only thing we know for certain is that they got engaged in 18 days, or was it 17 days? And then after that, they got married. Candace Owens was now working. Candace Owens, after they left from the UK and went back, Candace Owens was fired from TPUSA because of some comments she made while she was in the UK regarding Hitler and the Nazi. The situation is complicated. So she got fired from TPUSA. Now she was hired by PragerU. Candace Owens has said that calling by PragerU was also a situation because they took her to a certain place and they told her that she had to go and visit a certain rabbi, which she went for, and she did not know that was the initiation, but apparently that was some kind of initiation. She worked at PragerU. It was a few moments later, Candace Owens is also fired from there. Then she is picked up by who? The Daily Wire. She works with the Daily Wire. She's now married to her husband, popping up her beautiful babies, building up her family in Nashville, and then she is fired again from the Daily Wire because of something what? Who Who would have thought? Allegedly anti-Semitic. She said Christ is king. I still don't understand that part. I'm still digging it. Please explain more to me how that works. So after that, Candace Owens now forms her own independent media, which is headed, or let's say the person who is like the mother company of Candace Owens media empire is Georgetown. Georgetown is owned by who? George Bollington Farmer. I made a video on this channel explaining to you her media empire and who sponsors it. Candace Owens has always pretended like she is this independent media. No, she's not. From the time she created Blexit, she was funded by billionaires of the highest order, right down to her running her independent media of today, which is still funded by Georgetown. Georgetown's donors are still the elite class, from the US to the UK, elitism all around Candy Baby. In 2025, Candace Owens was Mrs. Worldwide. She became top podcaster in the world. George Farmer officially becomes a US citizen while maintaining the UK titles. He continues to act as a primary financier for Reform UK grounds ahead of local and general elections. Now, we had said that we are also going to look at the reasons why George Farmer had to, one, leave UK for the USA, because after marrying Candace, he left for the USA. Well, some people think it is just because of the failed election, but there were multiple reasons involved in his move to the United States. Let's look at them. The first thing is this, like I've said before, the Bollington class ceiling, the Bollington class situation. In the UK, George Farmer's membership in the Bollington Club was a political albatross. Why Boris Johnson and David Cameron survived their Bollington pass, they did so in an era before social media and before all the deep dives we now have going around. Boris Bollington and David Bollington Cameron wouldn't have survived these days going into office. They would have been dragged to hell. It would have been difficult. But George Farmer came on an era where social media had turned everything into permanent class war memes. So it was a drag of George Farmer online. And why were they dragging him? Remember, who can get into the Bollington Club? Those are questions you ask yourself. Go watch the Bollington Club video. You understand why he was dragged for the Bollington Club Association. Who gets into the Bollington Club? How much it costs to get into the Bollington Club? What are the activities of those in the Bollington Club? What are their affiliations in the world, especially to the Rothschilds? If you understand those questions, you answer those questions, you will see why he was drugged terribly. And why was he drugged? He was drugged because George Farmer was trying to claim that he wants to be this person who rejects elitism. He wants to reject elite lifestyle. George Bollington Farmer. You too. Credibility gap. When George launched Turning Point UK, he attempted to lead a populist anti-elite movement. However, his status as a multi-billionaire heir to Lord Michael Farmer made him an easy target for British satire. In the UK, he was viewed as a poish boy playing at revolution. What was he thinking? George Bollington Farmer, sometimes I wonder if you're okay. You just thought you would come with your British accent. You are talking to British. If you were coming with your British accent to talk in America, yes, they will fall for that crap. In Britain, everybody has the British accent. So what were you trying to say? What are we doing here? What are we doing here, George Bollington Farmer? Please. The next thing was the Brexit Party failure. His failure to win a seat in the 2019 European elections signaled that he couldn't simply buy his way into UK's electoral hearts. like we've said, he had a lot of baggage, which made him to also realize after losing that seat. We discussed that in the first part. After losing that seat. But in the USA, however, extreme wealth like the one he comes from, elitism, education, even the Bullington Club is often viewed as badges of success rather than reason of suspicion amongst the new right. The new right in the UK is very different from the new right in the United States. George Farmer, Candace Owens went to the UK with Turning Point, with Charlie KIRK to open Turning Point UK for them to form a new right and solidify the new right of the UK. But then they carry George Farmer as a huge chairperson and put there elitism personified. How can you carry if there was a word in the dictionary that was elitism, it would be George Farmer's face, and you carried him and put as chairperson for the new right movement. The new right movement is supposed to mean those who are of the lower class, those who are struggling class. We are fighting against elitism. Then you carry their air and you come and put in front of them. So what were we doing? What were we doing? Anyway, I think that the truth is this: politics is all make believe. It is a stage. These people are all actors. So every time they put an experiment in front of you to see how far you fall for it. Trump was a great experiment. Did people not fall for it? They fell. And don't worry, before you open your eyes, Erica KIRK will be dropped in front of you as a candidate. And you know the funny thing? It will not be shocking if she becomes president or something in the presidency or vice president. I will not be shocked. I could run for president in America and I could win. I have a chance. Trump won, please. The bar is in hell. Oh Lord. There are many reasons, and his father is one of those reasons. The relationship with his father, Lord Michael Farmer, is a study in establishment versus insurgent dynamics. Now, who is establishment? His father, Lord Michael Farmer. And then George Farmer is trying to be insurgent, in quotes, because for me that is fake insurgent. He's trying to be insurgent and he wants to kick against elite. What is he kicking against? Against his papi. And who is the one who is giving him the money he contributes? Or how did he get the money he contributes into the new right movement he went and joined Nigel Farage with? Remember in part 1 we said, George Farmer woke up. Nigel Farage was looking for people to make the new right solidified. And he turned and looked at George Farmer and said, do you want to come join me in the new right? Joe said, yeah, I'm coming and I'm bringing my father's money along. So he was constantly dragging his father's money along. That is a huge thing. You cannot be dragging the same money along and then you're claiming that you're fighting against that money. It makes sense, Georgie. George Bullington Farmer, that chaos, it doesn't confuse everybody. Sometimes people open their eyes and see the bullshit. The shadow of the Copper King, as Lord Michael Farmer is always called in the UK, Lord Farmer is himself a self-made billionaire and a pillar of the Conservative Party. For George, staying in the UK meant forever being the son of Lord Farmer.
For years, I was my father's son.
So that is why he thought to himself, why will I stay here? It is better I move to the USA where he could build his own kingdom.
And now I've become my wife's husband.
For example, parlor, media consultancy, creating new Nigel Farages, aka Candy Baby, Andrew Tates. Who will be the next one? Drop in the comment section. So these are some of the reasons why people were outraged when he came in front of people in the name of New Rights political party or political New Right with Turning Point UK, in a grassroots. How can you be looking for a grassroots organization and you put a fat elite in front as the chairman? What are you thinking? So his father's shadow will always have him. The political divergence. Lord Farmer represents the old guard, the pro-market, the staunchly pro-Israel, the loyal to the Tory party. George Farmer needed or wanted to move away from those labels. So what else did he have to do? He had to move to the US. And then there is also something about the family dynamics. After George married Candace, anyway, We will get back to that marriage soon. We'll get back to it. And the people who were at the marriage, we have Niger Forage again. Yeah. Candy baby, I see you, girl. We are going to dive forward a little bit in this story. In 2024 now, there is a rift that involved his father. Like we've said, his father represents the old money, old pro-Israel, pro-market kind of oligarchy. But then George Farmer wants to be anti-Israel, wants to be a different new right, the kind of right that is not part of the elite UK, which is why in 2024, Candace Owens, after saying some things which some people thought were anti-Semitic, guess who came out to say, in this family, we are not like that? George's father, Lord Michael Farmer. Lord Michael Farmer, this public distance, he came out and publicly distanced himself over Candace Owens' Israel commentary, which he found as fundamentally not fair or not good. So by being in the US, George Farmer is physically and socially able to at least buffer himself away from his father's shadow. Because imagine if he was in the UK when this happened, at least even though the father sent out a tweet and the tweet was seen worldwide, but just the aspect that George Farmer is in the US, not in the UK, where there will be kicking each other's knuckles every 2 to 3 minutes because of each other's views, it helps. So that is why George Farmer had to move his ass to the USA after marrying his wife, whom he met, according to several accounts, using several people. It's not me, it is them who are confusing us. Another reason why George Farmer had to move to the US after marrying Candace is the Candace effect of it all. It is impossible to separate George's relocation from his marriage. That is definitely true. Candace Owens is a titan of the American culture war. In London, she is a polarizing foreign figure, but in the USA, she's a brand. And George Farmer had studied the UK scenes, and he said he liked the fact that the UK scenes was nice, it was calm, it was this, but he loved the US scenes. The US scenes was out there. It was no nonsense. It was say your mind the way you're feeling it. It was bombastic. And he married a bombastic wife. Candace Owens in the UK will feel like a nuisance, but in the US, ooh la la, baby, she is president of the Investigative Mommy Slew Club. So you see, George Farmer knew his wife would not thrive in the UK as a political pundit. Besides, George Farmer has tried politics in the UK, both in front and behind the camera, and it did not work. He was made fun of, dragged Lord Michael Farmer's name through the mud because he wanted to become anti-elite. Meanwhile, he is the top definition of elitism. So at certain point, he knew adding his wife's factor to it and being in the UK where everything there is supposed to be demure, soft, and very, very nice. It was going to be a clash of the titans. The very elite UK political system with Candace Owens' bombastic mannerism and all that chaotic Americana is going to cause a lot of trauma to the politicians in the UK. It was going to be, Meghan Markle would have had nothing on Candace Owens if Candace Owens stayed in the UK. Meghan Markle would have been a non grata. In fact, nobody would have noticed her existence if Candace Owens had stayed in the UK, because she would have been causing and giving them back-to-back chaos every 2 to 3 minutes, and it would not have worked well because she would have been seen as a nuisance. George knew her scale would be limited because the number of people who like that kind of nuisance, problematic, bombastic political approach in the UK are far fewer than in the US. In the US, everybody is chaotic, okay? Everyone in the US is chaotic. The market scale in the UK is very small and heavily regulated. The US is the alternative media personified. If you're looking for alternative media in the dictionary, America's map will be there and all the podcasters will be on it. Market is worth billions and it offers total freedom of speech, something George loved and has expressed several times on podcasts that he enjoys that about American politics. It is liberal, it is laissez-faire, it is parler comme tu veux. But in the UK, no, it is the Queensland. Have some manners, and manners means shut the hell up. George realized that his skill set in high finance networking and political strategy was much more lucrative when applied to his wife's massive US audience. Ooh, George Bollington Farmer is good at this stuff. He learned the Nigel Farage playbook so well and he knew exactly how to apply it. Can you imagine George Farmer having a podcast and talking every 2 to 3 minutes? No, we like to hear from him once in a year or once in 2 years. Let him come and drop a few things and he disappears. But Candace Owens, that is the market. Candace can tell a story about you and you'll be wondering, who is that girl? Meanwhile, they are calling your name, you will not believe it's you because she knows how to tell a story. So, this is the system they worked. Candace Owens and George Farmer, their marriage provided one thing: immediate entry for George Farmer into the US ecosystem, and a partnership where Candace Owens is the front-facing communicator, while George Farmer stays in the background as a financier and strategist. And if you listen to her tell you about how she started a podcast, who has been taking care of everything in the background, you will understand George's role. This is another part, the Farage blueprint. The Farage blueprint works better in America. Nigel Farage was able to, in fact, he merely succeeded politically in America, in the UK, given his political approach. Farmer appears to have absorbed lessons from Nigel Farage. Farmer's model, media first politics, personality-driven mobilization, constant outstanding framing, pressure from outside parliament. But here's the key nuance. In the UK, this model is constrained by institutions, but in the US, it is fully scalable. You can expand it as much as you like. Then in the US, you also have a larger donor system, fragmented media, which is easier to build alternative media, which is why as soon as Candace Owens is fired from one place, she can move to the other. And when they found it that it was no longer lucrative for them to work for another person, they created their own media empire, and it is working perfectly fine. Now we have the First Amendment culture. Free speech platforms like Parler can exist more easily in the USA. And we also have celebrity politics, which is a crossover, and it makes it easy for them to also scale and expand the market and their reach of their political framework. George Farmer did not just move to any place. They moved to Nashville for a reason. That was a strategic choice. Like I've said, these two individuals don't do anything by chance. If you followed their documentaries, which I did on this channel, both George's and Candace, these people are intentional people. They don't do anything by chance. Nashville is an interesting and pivotal choice. It is not just for lifestyle, it is strategy. Emerging conservative media hub in Nashville, low cost and fewer legacy media constraints than in New York City and in DC. And I also heard the taxes in Nashville are quite nice. Strong evangelical and cultural conservative networks, friendly regulatory and business climate. George is very good at picking up things like that. So this allows for what? For them to build a parallel right ecosystem. What do we mean by parallel right ecosystem? A parallel right that merges from the UK right down to the US, which is why I keep telling you guys, Candace and her husbandman are causing transatlantic chaos. Transatlantic Bollington chaos. Why do you think I call this man Bollington George Farmer? He is George Bollington Farmer for a reason. Also, when you look at their move, there are several aspects we can also look at when it comes to George Farmer and Candace Owens moved to the US, we can look at him deciding that he doesn't want to become a politician in front. He's tried and dusted and left it. He wants to be a financier behind the scene, like we've discussed already. Also, ideological evolution from liberalism to traditionalism. That is a very impressive thing. And there is something about George Farmer's system of operation which I have really caught on to. It was the same system Andrew Tate followed, the same one Candace Owens followed, and it's the same one he says he is following, which tells me that that is the same thing he is sharing with all his pundits. Then we have also the aspect of the dual system strategy. Like we've said, him entering in the US gave him a nationality or free entry into the political system, but it also gave him something else. It helped him become part of the legal system of the US immediately, because him becoming, like we said already, in 2024, he became a US citizen. That is a very strategic thing. And he became a US citizen while still keeping his UK titles. Bear that in mind. Bottom line, it is not for one reason. It's a convergence of personal, reputational, political, strategical, and family reasons. So George Farmer's move to the US makes the most sense if you don't look at it as if he is just someone who failed at politics, and you start looking at it as a political investor building infrastructure across borders, or like I said, as George Bullington Farmer implementing the Bullington Chaos Playbook across the transatlantic ocean. Voila! That is why George Farmer moved to the US. It's a combination of reasons, and those reasons are imperative. It comes from the shame he felt by being mocked when he became Turning Point chairperson in the UK for the first time. He was mocked out of it because, how dare you come to play in our faces, you this elite schoolboy? Are you crazy? And also, he tried politics in the UK and failed. And he saw that him behind the scenes was better. So he walked around, because after failing in politics with Nigel Farage, you would have thought maybe he would just go home and stay home and just send his contributions to Nigel Farage, say, you know what, I'll continue just being your financier. No, he traveled around the country, traveled around Europe with Nigel Farage, following up political situations, understanding the political sphere, how politics moves, the strategies Nigel Farage has been using from the time George Farmer was a schoolboy. And he understood those strategies, which is why as soon as he met his candy baby, he dragged her down to Romania to meet his friend, his longtime friend Andrew Tate, and they drew up a strategy which blew Andrew Tate in no time after that. And then, next minute, it was Candace Owens. Candace Owens, Mrs. Worldwide. So, what do you say? In the third part, we are going to do something very important. Like I've said, George Farmer has a strategy. He calls it the red pill, blue pill, white pill, black pill. And we are going to look at what all of these pills entail and why he keeps using these strategies with all his pundits. From Andrew Tate to Candace Owens, it's the same thing. And in the last part of this series, we are going to look at George Farmer's father, Lord Michael Farmer. Because if you understand Lord Michael Farmer, you will understand who George Farmer is completely. And if you understand George Farmer, you will understand what Candace Owens is doing. Because Candace Owens is the physical face of what George Bullington Farmer is doing behind the scenes. Pay attention. There is a full-blown transatlantic Bullington chaos ongoing, and many people are just sleeping and dozing through it without recognizing it, and it is painful. It's best we open our eyes. So that is the end of today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I would like to know them. What did you learn new from here, and what do you think about everything we've learned. And until next time, if you have any thoughts and any suggestions, you have anything you would like to send to me as tips, please send to me using the email in the channel, and I will link it in the description box. And thank you very much for coming to the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, bye. We already discussed how Candace Owens stole the name Blexit from another black woman. In this video, we are going to look at who actually inspired her Blexit movement.
And I said to myself, this is the guy that's leading Brexit. And in that moment, I said, in America, there needs to be a Blexit. So you really are the source, not only of the Brexit movement, but of the Blexit movement in America.
Given his proximity to George Farmer, did Candace and George actually meet by coincidence when she hustled and took Charlie's credit card, bought them tickets to head to the United Kingdom? Or was it another cleanup event Candace Owens was heading to, but she can't mention it to us? Because the truth is, Candace was hired in TPUSA just around the time when a serious scandal was breaking, and she was needed as a cleanup lady, as she always does. Even in the case of Ben Shapiro, what was she cleaning up when she walked into TPUSA? And is she another cleanup lady for something else? These and many more we are going to discuss, especially the question of why did George Farmer, after meeting Candace, decide not only sponsor the Brexit movement, but also the exit of himself to the United States.
I'm prepared for my show. Are you?
Hello, Naticians. It's been on my mind for a long time, and I'm sure on many of your minds. So many people have been wondering, why did George Farmer move himself from the United Kingdom to the United States after he married his dear wife, Candy Baby? The thorn to all our flesh, the problem to all our problems, and the fun to all our chaos. Why did he move from the United Kingdom to the United States? Well, to get a citizenship.
So are you using me for American citizenship?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Nah.
Now, just to be clear, no.
I don't think that was reason enough for George Farmer to leave the United Kingdom to the United States after marrying his wife. So I went down a rabbit hole to find out why. But before we do, there are certain characters in this story who have been ignored for so long, and it's imperative that I bring them, shine the respective light they deserve on their names, faces, and actions. Welcome back to the channel. My name is allegedly Nemo, if you don't know who I am.
This is Nemo here.
Like, share, subscribe to the channel. There is so much fun content here. We don't care who you are. Just walk right in, be a lady or a gentleman, and comport yourself. Manners, manners. Especially today, we're talking about British people. We don't want no kind of bombastic, chaotic activities here, even though they are chaotic people. But, nonetheless, let's keep moving.
I'm prepared for my show. Are you?
I will want us to start with something that was very popular and important in the life of the country, Britain. What is that? Brexit. Ooh, there was a time when Britain got up and said, you know what, Europe, I am an adult now. I have grown up, and I think that I am old enough to move out of my parents' house. I no longer want to live here. I want to be independent. I want to be an adult. I no longer want to live here. And Europe said, come on, you're still a teenager. I know you think you're all grown up now, but Britain said, you know what? I'm moving out. Okay? I want to get married, have babies without living under the shadow of my parents, Europe. So, what happened? On the 23rd of June 2016, the process, that is a public mandate, effectively began when the UK held a national referendum in which 51.89% of voters chose to leave their parents' house, the EU. On the 29th of March 2017, the formal legal trigger began. Then Prime Minister Theresa May officially started the legal exit process by invoking Article 50 of the Treaty on European Union, which initiated a 2-year countdown for withdrawal negotiations. And the official exit happened on January 31st, 2020. That is around the COVID time, As COVID was brewing, UK was being a teenager wants to leave their parents' house. After several delays and years of negotiation, the UK officially ceased to be a member of the EU at 11 p.m. GMT. There are very important people who played a part to ensure that UK left its parents' house, the EU. And some of those figures are going to play a massive role in not only Candace Owens' life, but in her family's life. And you're wondering, excuse me? What are you, Nemo? Are you sure you did not dig too deep into a rabbit hole and went off the internet and you were now in some remote corner of the dark web? No. I need you, listen, calm down, okay? I know how some of you will look at this. Relax. When I'm done here, you're not gonna believe it. Let's keep going. Now, you have heard the key thing and the key events of how it happened that the EU and United Kingdom decided to break up. That is, the United Kingdom decided to move out of its parents' house. The Brexit movement was driven by very important people and parties. It was driven by a coalition of political parties, high-profile politicians, and wealthy donors or private donors who funded two primarily often competing campaign groups. The first one was Vote Leave and the second one was Leave EU, which are the prominent political parties that were involved in the Brexit movement. The first one is the UK Independence Party, UKIP, led by who? Nigel Farage. UKIP was the primary force that pressured the Conservative government into holding that referendum in which 51.89% of the United Kingdom said, you know what, I think we want to leave. And there was a percentage who still wanted to stay under their parents' house. But the majority wins the vote when it comes to alleged democracies. The second party that was also very prominent when it came to the United Kingdom deciding to leave its parents' house was the Conservative Party, fractions. While the party leadership initially supported to remain a powerful pro-Brexit wing led by figures like Boris Johnson and Michael Gove provided the movement with mainstream credibility. Another one was the Democratic Unionist Party, DUP. The Northern Irish Party was a staunch supporter of the Leave campaign. They did not want to stay anymore there. They were tired. They wanted to move out and start living like an adult, drink beer, get loud and get crazy in the street. Another one was the Brexit Party. This party was launched by Nigel Farage in 2019 after the referendum. It was created to ensure that the 2016 vote was fully implemented. Now you may be wondering, okay, we've heard the history, we know these things. I'm sure some of the Brits are like, Nemo, you're not even British, we know these things. Why and how does it tie to Candace Owens and George Farmer? We'll get into it. Nigel Farage has been an important power player when it comes to UK politics. And in being a face in the UK politics scene, he has had powerful and very rich donors who mostly stayed behind the scenes. And Nigel Farage had developed a very interesting relationship with a significant and important personnel in this our story today, George Farmer. George Farmer is the son of one of the biggest conservative outright people in the United Kingdom. George Farmer, who is the son of this man, represents a significant bridge between the traditional British establishment, you know, the grandeur people, and the modern new right populist movement. This new right populist movement is a movement that Nigel Farage desired to merge with or combine or use to dismantle the traditional British established movement, because he wanted to sound or look, you know, demure, vogue, new, you know, up to date with the new and upcoming population. So what did he do? He partnered. He took out someone like George Farmer, who was a son of a very prominent political conservative in the United Kingdom, and took him to his side. And that was very loud and also called for certain reactions. George Farmer, the son of prominent conservative peer Lord Michael Farmer, is often described as the financier of the UK's transatlantic populist pipeline. Remember, the United Kingdom has a different kind of political landscape to that of the US. The US is bombastic. The United Kingdom is demure, a little bit polite, maybe too polite. They are calm. They do things in a certain way, using ethics. Yeah, it's a Queen's land. Come on, grow up some manners. That is how the politics in these countries operate. So, George Farmer has stated many times that he likes the political landscape of America. It is not pretentious. It doesn't hide its feelings. It just states it out there. So when someone like Nigel Farage, who was very much looking to embrace the new right movement, called him and said, hey, you want to come over here? He said, yeah. What are you thinking? You think I want to stay over here with these old people? Please, create some space for me. I'm coming over and I'm bringing my daddy's money along with me. So good. So that is how George Farmer carried Lord Farmer's money and gathered himself into the new right movement, which is led by Nigel Farage. And George Farmer is going to do something very interesting very soon. Many people think this guy has always stayed behind the scenes. You're not gonna believe what this guy decided to do. His relationship with Nigel Farage evolved from shared political activism during the Brexit era to deep financial and institutional alliances. During this Brexit era, like I've said, Nigel Farage knows how to what? Gather finances, how to get big bankers backing him. And one of the people he was able to corner is George Farmer, Lord Farmer's son, and he carried his daddy's money and followed Nigel Farage with it. He has stated over the years that him and Nigel Farage have been tight buddies. They've been uptight like that for a while.
You know, Nigel has basically been and I've known Nigel for many years, and, you know, he's a great personal friend.
Which is because they have not only established a bond of financier and public activists, but also they have established other alliances. Guys, keep and stay still. The tea is piping hot. We've spoken about Nigel Farage, you know his work and what he does. Everybody knows Candy Baby. I don't need to introduce Candy Baby here, do I? No. If you need introduction, please go. I've done deep dives on that woman, so many videos. You will not lack information when you're done with those videos. So now let's get to Candy Baby. Candy Baby was what? Working in she was in the United States, this bombastic Americana. And she said she met Nigel Farage the first time in 2017.
Silence. Ready? Okay, guys, we are rolling into another episode of the Candace Owens Show. We spent a lot of time here talking about what's going on in America with the rise of Trump, the rise of populism. These are things that the left would have you believe is due to this bubble of racism and sexism and misogyny that was just bubbling beneath the surface here in America. But is that true? What about what's going on overseas? What about Brexit? What about what's happening in Italy? What about Salvini? What about Nigel Farage? Welcome to the Candace Owens Show.
Great to be here.
Such an interesting, you and I have a very interesting background. I tell people in this weird way, we were just meant to cross paths. And the earliest story, and I love to tell this story because the best judgment of a character is how people act before you are somebody. And I was an absolute nobody, sprinting around CPAC 2 years ago, trying to give my card and my name to everybody, rushing to be on radio shows. And there was a guy backstage who was very nice to me. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh my gosh, that's Nigel Farage. And you were just the happiest, nicest person in the entire world." And I said to myself, this is the guy that's leading Brexit. And in that moment, I said, in America, there needs to be a Blexit. So you really are the source, not only of the Brexit movement, but of the Blexit movement in America.
Well, I loved your energy, you see. That's what it was when I first met you. I loved your energy. And hey, you know, that's why you've got a long way, because you believe in it, you're optimistic, you want to change things. And, you know, as you said, there's a lot going on. There's America, there's Italy, but I'm going to make one big boast, all right? We were here first.
Right.
We were here.
Remember, in 2016, Nigel Farage was very busy with Brexit 2017, 2018, and 2019. 2020, right down to when Brexit left. And just after Brexit left, when they are planning for the referendum, Nigel Farage forms a new party, Brexit Party. Keep that at the back of your mind. Candace Owens meets Nigel Farage the first time in February 2017 at a CPAC event in the United States, where everybody was running around being popular and she was behind the stage watching Donald Trump. Donald Trump was in his era, right? And then Nigel Farage was there. And she met Nigel Farage behind the scenes, and Nigel Farage was very nice and kind to her, according to what she has stated. And according to the interview she also did with Nigel Farage, when she worked at PragerU, she interviewed Nigel Farage. We've explained that. First time Candace Owens met Charlie KIRK was in 2017. We are not exactly sure of the date. Remember, Dave Smith had came out and said he was the reason why the two of them met. They were in some political event and he introduced Candace to Charlie, and a few minutes later Charlie hired her. But officially, they state that on the 21st of November 2017, Candace Owens was hired to work with TPUSA. And I would like us to clear up something that is conspicuously usually left out when it comes to the hiring of Candace Owens and the time optics of it all. In late 2017, just before or during the period when Candace Owens was hired, Turning Point USA was rocked by a series of high-profile racism allegations. Not one, several. The most significant one was that which involved Crystal Clayton. If you don't know who she is, she currently works with someone very interesting too, who was then the National Field Director and essentially the right hand to Charlie KIRK. An investigation by the New Yorker Jane Mayer revealed a screenshot of a text message Clayton sent to a fellow employee that read, "I hate black people. Like fuck them all. I hate blacks. End of story." Clayton resigned from TPUSA after the message became public. Interestingly, despite the nature of this text, Charlie KIRK had previously praised her and boasted of how she is the best hire he could have ever made. So he made this best hire of his, according to his words, but she turned out to be a raging racist. Okay. This is the twist. After leaving TPUSA, this is the funny part, Clayton was taken in by Janine Thomas. If you don't know who Janine Thomas is, she is the wife of the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Are you connecting the dots now? You connecting? Good. I hope it's clear. I hope we see the universe we are walking in. And this became, she became now the clerk for the justice himself. Justice Thomas, of course. And then this was very controversial as well, up to today. Let's look at the next situation that was also very controversial just around this time, and Turning Point was coming over heavy accusations of racism. Just around this time also, another thing happened. A video surfaced of a TPUSA field director Juan Pablo Andrere, I don't care about his name, fuck him, saying that the only thing that narcissists didn't get right is they didn't keep fucking going. Top-notch hires, Charlie. Top-notch. You did your real experience is the first teacher. Multiple regional TPUSA leaders were found to have ties to white nationalist figures and had posted outright memes, leading to a wave of resignations and disbanding of several chapters, like one in Kent State. And the funny thing is this, when you look at Charlie KIRK's narrative, the way he spoke about certain things, I don't see this being so far-fetched, like he was this innocent guy and he had all of these kind of human beings around him. No, Charlie KIRK had that in him too. Experience is the first teacher. It's just unfortunate that he was never ever caught in the act. So right around the time when all of this shenanigans was going on, he ran to hire Candace Owens as the director of urban engagement. And then many critics viewed her hiring as a strategic move to insulate the organization from the racist label, So by bringing in a black vocal woman to lead urban engagement, TPUSA could pivot away from the Clayton scandal and claim they were focused on diversity of thought. And you can see how that went, because the minute Candace Owens was no longer convenient for them after she had washed their image, cleansed it, and sanitized it, what happened? They dropped her like a hot potato. So you see that Candace Owens has this rhetoric of constantly being the token, in quotes, who is taken into certain organizations to clean in their messes, to clean up their bullshit that is ongoing. It's the same damn thing. She was hired at Ben Shapiro's place for the same reason. She went in there to do the things they could not do and say the things they could not say. And once she was no longer convenient for them, dropped like a hot potato. You see the rhetoric where it's going? So we can ask Candace, what else? Who else are you currently cleaning up? But anyway, let's stay focused. I wanted to bring this up because it's an important thing that many people always miss, and people forget to put the full picture of who Charlie KIRK is, his organization is, because Turning Point USA, yes, it has wonderful and good people for sure, but it has always been surrounded by very sketchy people. So that's why when I see the people who are there right now, even after his demise, and the way they are treating him after his demise, I'm not shocked, because he had built an organization that flourished on a toxic and terrible image organization. It was built on that and it flourished on that, which is why I'm not even shocked at the way some of his employees or friends, even his wife, are behaving after his end. Anyway, let's get back to what we are doing. We're here today for Candace. This is a deep dive for another day. After meeting Charlie KIRK and getting hired in 2017, November 2017, on the second time Candace Owens meets Nigel Farage after the February 2017 meeting is 2018, April 7th. She meets Nigel Farage again. And then October 27, 2018, that is after meeting Nigel Farage in April, June, July, August, September, October, she creates and launched her Blexit, a portmanteau of the Black and Living the Democratic Movement. That is a movement where she created for Black people to leave the democratic movement. And we have discussed on this channel already that she did not create the name Blexit. She was inspired by Nigel Farage.
And I said to myself, this is the guy that's leading Brexit. And in that moment, I said, in America, there needs to be a Blexit. So you really are the source, not only of the Brexit movement, but of the Blexit movement in America.
Well, I loved your energy, you see. That's that's what it was when I first met you. I loved your energy.
I want you to pay attention to these things. Remember, Nigel Farage is a very prominent political figure in the UK. He is a frontliner in front and has several donors. And amongst those donors, one of them is George Farmer. And there is something very important that George Farmer does just not long after joining Nigel Farage. In 2019, the European Parliament election was a specific proving ground where George Farmer left and transitioned from a background financier to a frontline political operator under Nigel Farage mentorship. Remember, he left the conservative movement where his father is like a demigod and decided, no, I want to join the new ride with Nigel Farage. I want to sweep to that other side and I'll carry my daddy's money along. So when he was there in 2019, he decides to run for office. But before running for office, something important happened. Before running for office in 2019, remember again, Candace met Nigel Farage the first time February 2017, the second time April 2018. And after meeting in April, in October 2018, Candace Owens launches her Blexit movement, which is like an inspiration she gathered from Brexit, which Nigel Farage was leading in the UK. And then in December 11, 2018, according to Candace and George, they officially meet. And this is the thing. Candace Owens and George Farmer's story of how they met is very interesting. The number of individuals involved in their matchmaking, so far, it's counting to 4. And the belief or the notion that Candace had no iota of who George Farmer is before ever meeting him during that dinner, it's coming into questions because she has had encounter with Nigel Farage. This man has had someone like George Farmer by his side, mentoring him, which means Candace Owens must have understood or known the presence of someone like Lord Michael Farmer's son in Nigel Farage's life. But Candace Owens wants us to believe that she knew of Nigel Farage, met him twice physically in the United States, but never followed up on looking on who he is, anything about him, and she did not know anything about George Farmer until the day she hustled Charlie KIRK that they should go to the United Kingdom. She hustled him. She actually took his credit card, according to her words, not mine, and bought the tickets they used to go to the United Kingdom. And Charlie asked her, what are we going to do there? What are we doing here? And she said, I don't know. I just feel it in my bones. We got to go to the UK. I feel like I want to meet some London people. Do you think Candy Baby knew that inviting Nigel Farage to the event she and Charlie KIRK were going to be throwing in the name of Turning Point or the launch of Turning Point UK, because Nigel Farage actually did videos promoting this event? Do you think Candace Owens knew that him coming there would indicate him coming with a certain gentleman she has noticed in his orbit and whom she is drawing her tentacles towards to grab and hold for herself? But don't tell anybody I said that. And after the met, the man recognized the house cleaning thing she likes doing, like she was doing currently for TPUSA, where she was cleaning up their image after the racism allegations. And he just asked himself, well, she can clean up something for me. What was she cleaning up for him? Allegedly. Let me know in the comment section. Do you believe Candace Owens knew nothing after everything I've just told you now? Nothing about George Farmer before ever meeting him? Or do you think there is more there? I want us to leave it here because I want us to digest this in bits. In the second part, we will look at the real events leading up to Candace Owens and George Farmer's meeting, as well as what happened at the Turning Point USA that turned UK upside down, and the real reason George Farmer could not stay in the United Kingdom after marrying his black queen, Candace Owens. It was a lot of scandals. A lot of house cleaning was needed. And do you think Candy Baby came to the rescue again? Of course. But how? In the second part, we're going to look at that. We are going to look at how George and Candace turned UK politics into something else and how they converted that into transatlantic chaos. We have already done that when we looked at the Bollington Club, George Farmer and the Bollington Club and their agenda. We all know that. If you have not watched that video, I encourage you go watch George Farmer on the channel and the Bollington Club. It is a full deep dive, 2 hours at least, and you will get the full details of who George Farmer is and actually his real aim for America and maybe his home country, Britain. Well, guys, this is the first part. I will see you in the second part. Meanwhile, you know, if you don't share this video, no one will find it. So share with your friends, your gossip mates. Share with Candy Baby, because we also have questions for Candy. Candice, when you knew of Nigel Farage, did you ever know that there was a young, handsome gentleman in his orbit? Or you are sticking by a story that you had no iota who George Farmer was until the day you met in the event in the UK? Secondly, did you know that Turning Point USA was hiring you as a cleanup mummy when you were hired during the scandals of racism and all the isms that was going on in TPUSA when you walked in? Because you have already cried or decried Ben Shapiro and his activities, calling him all the words you know the meltdown. It was a full debacle. We went through this in December. I can't do it again. You want to do it, go watch the videos. Candace went on a rampage, Ben Shapiro rampage, because the meltdown, and I did a full breakdown of what happened that cost us and how it could have been avoided. Candace, did you know that you were a cleanup lady when you were hired in TPUSA? And when did you realize that? Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Until the next part, I'll see you sooner than later. Bye.
The red pill is when you become the conservative.
Yes.
And the black pill is when you realize that actually you can't change anything at all. The white pill is when you realize that the only thing that can really change things is Jesus Christ.
After I spoke to him, I was like, oh, Candace has no chance. She's going to become a Catholic.
Oh, you're not doing it.
I actually don't believe in birth control.
No? You're just doing it the Catholic way, just like whatever
My
happens?
husband's so Catholic, like beyond. He's
But then you
Catholic.
could have 12 kids.
I know, it's dangerous. To become a student of history means to become a Catholic.
You're the most interesting man in the world, George Farmer. Where does this clearly sets you up for something very important. I mean, something has to spark soon. And I just kind of get this feeling that something majestic might happen soon. Yeah. And I think you're part of it. Yeah. And I think you're part of it.
OnlyFans podcast, Bulletin Elitism, and a trad wife who never stays home. Welcome to the white pill era, a world where George Farmer's disciples have traded the Bibles for a business plan and called it Christianity.
That tattoo is because I love the Lord Jesus Christ, and it's a sort of a lucky number.
From the debauchery of the Oxford Bollington Club to the Christ is King hashtag of the digital right, a new brand of spiritual populism is taking over. But when the prophets of this movement like Andrew Tate and Russell Brand and Candace Owens continue to flaunt OnlyFans lifestyle and pimp mentalities, while Candace Owens defends them in the name of tradition, we have to ask, is this a religious revival or a clever rebranding of the old vices by George Bullington Farmer. The metrics didn't disappear, it just changed its clothes. Meet George Farmer, the man who has successfully and is still successfully piling the masses by trading red pill rage for white pill religion. It's a masterful pivot that turns influencers into icons and sins into strategy. And it's time to expose the true, real metrics hiding in plain sight. If you've not watched part 1 and 2 of this video, you are going to be so lost. So I encourage you to go watch part 1. Part 1 is about why George Farmer left the UK, and we establish everything, including the links that have been hidden. And part 2, we looked at their meeting and every lie about it, the allegations against both of them, and why George Farmer betrayed his own family to move to the US with Candace Owens. If you've not watched part 1, a lot will be confusing. So go watch that part and then you come back for Candace Owens' husband to explain to us what is the movement from one pill to the other, from the red pill to the black pill to the white pill. The strategy has been in front of us all this time, but we have just been neglecting to see it. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. If you don't know who I am allegedly Nemo. Like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. And for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome, 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 one and all. Welcome in. Here we are ladies and gentlemen who don't care who you are. Come right in, feel at home, relax yourself. All we ask is that you be respectful, especially during these times when we are talking about British elites. Have some manners.
Yeah, we should break that down. People are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. The black pill is
on a podcast which we usually use sometimes as our references when it comes to George Farmer, because he has done few and they are far in between interviews. He said something very important, and from the moment I heard it, the first time I ever heard it, it irked me. I said, something here is not making sense. What is it I'm missing? Then I listened to it the second time and it clicked. And I've been pushing this for a while because I needed to have a real good sequence of events to bring this in. And this was the perfect one. George Farmer explained his movement from the red pill to the black pill to the white pill. And he said he never got the red pill because he grew up red pilled. So he never needed to take any kind of red pill already. How did this happen? And if you look at the people, because we've established on this channel, if you've been here any moment, you know that we have our suspicions that George Farmer is the master behind individuals like Candace Owens and Andrew Tate. And if you understand what it means to have products, it means that you apply similar or close to the same playbook in them. And George Farmer, from his Bullington days of chaotic debauchery right down to the days he did his internship with Nigel Farage, which we have established on this channel, he has been drafting and putting together a plan in order to start his own media empire. Because like we said before, once you have understood what today's political scene is, you don't need to win a seat in any house. All you need is to get a platform and establish political pundits to spin your political narratives, and you are on your way to selling everything you ever thought about selling without lifting a finger or even wagging a tongue. Because, well, you have products.
Nigel has basically been and I've known Nigel for many years, and, he's a great personal friend, but Nigel took what was an unpopular topic and a boring topic from being a kind of, irrelevant mundanity of the UK political scene into being a global discussion. Yes. And he did it earlier than anybody else. Yes. And his viral clips were kind of, really, really big. I mean, the first viral clips I ever watched in my late kind of teenage years, like 2007, 2008, 2009, were of Nigel Farage, being like, who are you? Yeah. You look like a Swiss bank account clerk. Who are you? And he's standing up in the European Parliament insulting Herman van Rompuy, yes, who at the time was the president of the European Commission, I think. But, he really did a lot for kind of making virality a thing. And that then became, in and of itself, a whole kind of, I don't want to say an industry, but it became much more of a, it became like, how can you create the viral clip? Right. How can you replicate what Nigel Farage is doing?
And who did it best in America?
Well, Trump, of course, yeah.
And I kind of wonder if that moment is linked to his ascendancy. And so many people, in a way, by having a man run for president and be president who was doing these viral things in America, in a way, it kicked down a lot of walls for people to then come around and say these things that were politically incorrect. Because someone like your wife Candace or others who are developing and adding things to their platform and learning new things, in the traditional media, that was not allowed. You sort of had your job, you had your specialty, you stay on this path, and by having our own independence now, there can be drift, there can be development, and then people can follow along on that, or they can check out.
Somebody like Nigel and then becoming Trump and et cetera, like the whole movement gathered speed and then allowed for people to do whatever they did, and shatter the media shibboleth. That was kind of the big thing. Like we just broke down those walls. And now you look at it and X percentage of the population of the United States no longer trust CNN. X percentage of the population no longer watch cable TV because they get their news from the Daily Wire, whatever it might be. They've completely changed the way they consume news, and that's kind of really, that's been the best result in many ways of kind of the media revolution.
George Farmer has articulated a 3-stage psychological journey that he uses to shepherd audiences into a specific ecosystem. In this podcast, he was not saying it as if it is something he does, but once you listen to it and you look at his supposed alleged products and their following and how they have been able to curate their lifestyles, like I've said, these individuals curate everything. You will see where this is coming from. To expose the metrics, we must understand each pill's function to begin with. The first one is the red pill. The red pill is the bait.
Pill is leaving the matrix.
The red pill is when you become the conservative, right? That's when you wake up and you realize that the whole world, the red pill is when you wake up and you see the fact that Naomi Osaka, who's protesting Black Lives Matter, is also sponsored by Panasonic and Airbnb and all these kind of major corporate sponsors, and you're like, okay, this is nonsense. Like every corporate establishment in the United States is changing its Twitter profile picture to a pride flag. That's when you wake up and take the red pill. You're like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this is nonsense. Like, this is like very contradictory.
The red pill, according to George Farmer and according to these manosphere metrics people, it is realizing that the system, the media, the government, education is lying to you. So what is it that you do after realizing this? This stage is designed to break your trust in all legacy media. And the reason for the breaking of trust for legacy media are multiple. We cannot blame the manosphere and George Farmer and George Bollington playbook for that only, because their activities have not been helping their case. But that is a video for another time. In this video, I'd like us to concentrate on George Bollington Farmer's shepherding methods with his, let's say, subordinates or products, allegedly. So once you break that trust in this legacy media, figures like Candace Owens and Andrew Tate use this to make you feel like you are part of an enlightened few. The mommy slews and those of us who are breaking out of the matrix. Do you see how the language is thrown out? However, in George Bollington Farmer's playbook, this is just the recruitment phase. It gathers the angry and disillusioned into one digital room. Candace Owens calls them our mommy slews, independent media. We've broken all of that down in this place and we expressed it, and we had all the evidence to show that Candace is not running an independent media. Her company is fathered or mothered by Georgetown's donors, and nothing like the independent people they're trying to portray them to be. These are individuals who have also funded the legacy media which are out there. Same damn thing with the Andrew Tate. From the time Candace Owens started her career from Brexit, we have established it on this channel. She got money from the who is who of the elite class. But then she will sit out here and tell us about how the elite are killing us. And it's the same damn thing with George Farmer, which is why he fled the UK. It was one of the reasons we explained why he fled the UK. He was trying to play, oh, I am anti-elite. Meanwhile, he was the damn picture of elitism. He was the damn significance of everything that elitism stood for. But he was trying to play, baby boy, I am out here fighting against the elite. Meanwhile, dragging his daddy's money into fighting that. That is some kind of bullshit. And we call that shit out. So once they have trapped you, they go to the next stage. The next stage is the black pill. And you come to the realization of that all by yourself or with the nudge of the people you are following. Listen, this is very important.
The black pill is when, a few years later, you've taken the red pill and you're like, okay, we can change it all. And the black pill is when you realize that actually you can't change anything at all, and both political parties are completely in it for themselves. The Republicans are just as corrupt as the Democrats. The New World Order, whether it be a conservative New World Order or a liberal New World Order, both of them are completely corrupt. And, people are self-serving, they're self-interested, all that kind of stuff.
After you have been dragged in using the red pill, and you are told that the government, everybody is lying to you, you are now struggling and fighting to fix it. You hear what George is saying. Once you realize that you cannot fix it, you are black-pilled. That is when you realize the system is so corrupt, it cannot be fixed. It leads to nihilism and you are so frustrated and in despair. So what happens? This is the most dangerous stage. When Russell Brand faces legal investigation or when Andrew Tate is jailed for all the allegations against him across 3 countries and 2 continents, they call it the black pill. They black pill their audience by claiming that the matrix is all powerful and coming for everyone, and even you listening to them, you are next. Even if you were not part of the people who were allegedly doing the things he was doing to kids and dragging people from one country to the other to carry out all the activities he was carrying. We have done everything about George Farmer's product, Andrew Tate, on this channel, digging deep into his all the allegations against him and all the ones he self-confessed by himself. So if you want to look into that, go look at that. He now acts as if it was you and him who were together, putting together 1 and 2 to do all the things he was doing, and they are coming for you next. No, Andrew, nobody is coming for me next because I did nothing to no kids. Candace Owens will start screaming about, oh, they are coming for you next. Nobody is coming for me next, Candy. I didn't do none of the shit you did. Russell Brand, the same damn thing. Oh, no. Those allegations against you were things you were participating in. I was not part of it. So nobody is coming for me. So they go around now blackpilling their audience by telling them that the world is so corrupt and everything is so wrong. There is nothing you can do about it. This creates a state of total vulnerability to their following, making them desperate for a savior or a solution. And we have expressed several times on this channel that the number of people who are followers are a majority compared to people who are actually thinkers. And if you look at those who are truly self-aware, it stands probably between maximum of 10 to 15%. The majority of 85 to 90% or maybe more are complete followers with lack of deep awareness and lack of understanding of their environment. So all they need is always a savior. They need someone to find a solution for them. They don't want to lift that finger to find it. So what happens? These saviors, these same people who red pilled them to begin with from the start, telling them that the world is corrupt, let's fix it, and now telling them now, no, there is nothing you can do about it. These same damn people come in now with the white pill. And what is the white pill? Let George Bullington Farmer explain it to you.
The white pill is when you realize that the only thing that can really change things is Jesus Christ, and that's kind of, and that's where I got to a few years ago. And that's when I suddenly became very aware that actually the white pill was, for me, it was the greatest change in my life, because you suddenly interpret scripture and you're looking at scripture and you're thinking, Christ says exactly all of this. He says there will be rumors of wars, there will be famine, there will be hunger, there will be princes, there will be rulers, there will be...
The white pill is what we call the product. Finding hope through the return of tradition, family, religion. This is the farmer pivot. Once the audience is hopeless, black-pilled, Farmer provides the white pill, a highly aesthetic version of Catholicism or traditionalism. But notice the disconnect.
There is no stone that I will leave unturned when it comes to harming children. The first case involves a man who I am not going to name. Only reason I'm not going to name him is because at the time of the allegations against him was in fact a minor. And that, of course, is relevant. So we just want to be ethical here and not expose his name so that people can look up the case.
Pause. So she wants to be ethical here, and she's protecting the man who has been convicted of a sex crime against 2 different minors because there was a minor involved. However, she has no problem saying what the minor's name is.
This is not real life. This is a strategy. It's not about quiet prayer and charity. It's about audience capture. By rebranding as Christian or Muslim, these influencers become an uncancelable human. And so, if you dare to attack them, you are not attacking a flawed human who lied to you. You are not attacking a flawed human who has shown characteristics which are not okay for someone who is claiming to be Christian. No, you are attacking Jesus Christ. How dare you? And that is when you find the religious fanatics out here running after individuals to defend them. They enter comment sections, fighting battles for which they had no idea how it started. But this is the truth. George Bollington Farmer built this strategy from scratch, and he understood brick by brick which brick will solidify and ensure that his products are able to not only capture these individuals, but maintain them. And he got those from 2 places. He got one of those kind of strategies from his days in the Bollington Club. The Bollington Club is the club of chaos. And if you've not watched the video I did months ago, breaking down everything about George Farmer and the Bollington Club and everything you need to understand about the chaotic transatlantic chaos George Bollington Farmer is causing. You need to go watch that and you understand. He got one part of that playbook from the Bollington Club days. What was their strategy? Destroy everything. And he was part of it. And it is the same damn time he said he gained Catholicism while studying theology in Oxford University. Make it make sense, Candy Baby, because we are very confused. But you know what? Our confusion is not confused. You cannot confuse our confusion. We understand the Farmer playbook. The second part of this playbook was perfected when he was working with Nigel Farage. Remember, he did not only stay as a donor when he joined Nigel Farage to form the New Right, and even when he became chairman of Turning Point UK, that launch which famously mocked the hell out of him in the UK. Go watch part 2 to understand everything I'm explaining to you here. He got that. After running also alongside Nigel Farage, he got all the playbook Nigel Farage uses and he merged it to perfect the playbook he is using with figures like Andrew Tate, Russell Brand, and Candace Owens. Andrew Tate, Russell Brand, I'm still wondering. I don't know. I'm still not sure, but I have my finger on Russell Brand as part of his products. He is giving me similar vibes of the Candace Owens and Andrew Tate. If you look at them critically, you see they are the same people and they are in the same circles, same kind of circles. So how did he do this? George Farmer's political DNA is rooted in the UK Independence Party, the UKIP, and the Brexit movement. We explained that in the first part. And he was a protege of Nigel Farage. But he evolved the strategy for the digital age. The Farage Foundation was good. Farage mastered the art of media insurgents using stunts, viral clips, and a man of the people persona to bypass the traditional gatekeepers. He was successful in that, and George Farmer understood, watched him closely, worked with him closely, which is why in part 2 we explained that I don't believe Candace Owens just did not know of George Farmer before heading to London. She knew who she was going to meet, and probably there was already a prior introduction, or she knew when she was setting her traps on George Farmer that she was going to capture this man and he was going to make a perfect one for her. And George Farmer, after studying the playbook of the Bulletin Club and studying the Nigel Farage playbook, he did the farmer spin on it. He perfected it to perfect the farmer spin. Farmer added the big tech infrastructure and influencer management. He knew in front of the camera, he does not flourish. Behind the scenes, he's a master of the art. And that is why he bought a microphone and put his wife in front. Baby, sit down. This is where you thrive. Me, I'm a sit behind the scenes. And every time you watch Candace Owens talk about George Farmer, you hear her say it. Without George, she doesn't know what the hell she's doing with the podcast. I don't know what you're talking about, Candace. It's about putting a camera, a mirror, and whatever thing you use, and you find someone to do your makeup or you do it yourself. I don't know what happens there. She always looks so good and gorgeous. Lord, you can't take one thing from Candy Baby. That lady is gorgeous. I don't know how George landed her. She is gore to the gorgeous. From the days of old, it doesn't matter those old pictures of her, the poor looking disheveled. That girl is beautiful. You can't take nothing from her. You can say everything about Candy Baby. You can't play about her beauty. So whatever she's doing, that is about sitting in front of the camera, baby. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, George Farmer, George Bulletin. It is because of the platform that supports her media empire. It's held by George Bulletin Farmer. It is called Georgetown. We had broken that down on this channel. Go look for that video, Candace Owens Media Empire, and you will see everything. I broke it down to the bones, to every bit of who sponsors what and how her media empire works. Go watch it. So George put a spin on it by ensuring that he looks for big tech infrastructure and influencer management. While Farage focused on old school rallies and TV and being bombastic on the TV, Farmer focused on alternative platforms. For example, when he was CEO at Parler, and also personal branding. Look at the way he's branding Candy Baby. It is all the Nigel Farage and the Bulletin Club put together. Go out there, cause dismay, cause destruction, do every debauchery you can do, watch it burn all down, and then you come in with a solution. That is what that is everything about it. She goes out there, watch it burn, and then comes in with a slight solution. And that solution is heading you again to another trap.
Christ is king.
He treats political figures like franchises. He doesn't just support an idea. He builds an ecosystem around a high-impact individual. For example, Candy Baby, Andrew Tate, and allegedly, I'm still suspecting Russell Brand. Here are the Farmer products, and I want us to look at this because we have looked at the red pill, the black pill, and the white pill, but I want us to take a real mirror, put it up in front of these people, and see if what they are projecting to us in the name of religiosity and being these children of God, mummies, loose, fighting the matrix, is the truth or is the act, like we've been saying on this channel. Farmer met Candace Owens, who is, I believe, is his prototype, when she was already red-pilled and as well black-pilled, apparently. And what was left was the white pill. So who came in for the saving and transformation into the white pill? George Bulletin Farmer.
On Instagram at Red Pill Black.
However, since their marriage, her content has shifted from black pill skepticism towards a white pill focus on tradition, religion, and the nuclear family. There is a video of George Farmer when he was giving a speech somewhere, and before the introduction, the person who was introducing George Farmer said, "When I first met George Farmer and he was talking about Candace Owens, and after I spoke with him, I said to myself, oh, Candace has no chance. She is going to become Catholic."
After I spoke to him, I was like, oh, Candace has no chance. She's going to become a Catholic.
Oh, you're not doing it.
I actually don't believe in birth control.
No? You're just doing it the Catholic way, just like whatever
My
happens?
husband's so Catholic, like beyond. He's the
But then you
Catholic.
could have 12 kids.
I know. It's dangerous. To become a student of history means to become a Catholic.
He understood the George Farmer playbook already. And no matter what Candy Baby did, she was going to become that Catholic. Whether it took her to 2024 or 2025, she was going to become Catholic. She got her baptism and she said she's going to do her dedication this April. Please, guys, watch out. If you see that dedication, please shove it to me. I'd like to know. If you're in the US and you go to the church Candy Baby attends, let me know how the dedication goes. We would like to be there, be part of it, to support our girl, become allegedly a Christian fully. Farmer provided the financial and strategic armor for her to exit mainstream conservative outlets like the Daily Wire and the other numerous ones she had worked at, which did not pan out, to become a completely independent media entity. We are going to look again at another part, Andrew Tate. That is the tactical mirror. Farmer has frequently discussed Tate in interviews, notably with Taylor Marshall.
He and I have talked about this before, and his brother is Tristan is, like, by the way, great guy. I love both of them. They're great guys, really, like, nice people, fun people. And that's the irony, is that, like, people look at them like, he's not a nice guy. Like, no, he's one of the kindest people you'll ever meet. He's one of the kindest people you'll ever meet. And his brother's a Romanian Orthodox Christian. And
while Tate is more red pill in the gender dynamic sense, he followed the Farmer strategy also. That is what I believe. He went from being red pill, attacking the matrix, the mainstream society, the mainstream, everything is deal. And he went to the next one, the black pill. That is when he started facing legal battles and cancellation. Then he went to the white pill, Tate's conversion to Islamism. And he had the biggest Christmas tree, even though when did Islam started celebrating Christmas? Please, don't answer that question. Leave it there. And family as a solution to metrics, mirroring Farmer's argument that traditional religion is the ultimate counterculture. But then there is something here. This guy claims to be wanting to stick to the family values and all of that. But do you know what this guy has built all his life? Broken homes. And if you watch that documentary on Netflix, the Manosphere kind of documentary, you see, and I've done a full deep dive on Andrew Tate. This man is a broken man who is just looking for a way to express his brokenness. But unfortunately, it gets other broken people into his orbit. And they think they are now one happy community or family or something. But that is the strategy. George Farmer doesn't like the fact that Andrew Tate converted to Islam. He would have preferred him to convert to Catholicism.
You get Andrew Tate saying these things. I mean, what would you say to Andrew Tate if he's just like, Islam is the way to go? Or he says we're all on the same mountain going up the same journey.
I would say he's completely wrong about that. And I've said that to him.
Right.
Look, George Farmer has seen his friend, his dear friend. There is one of my friends here who typed, Veronica said, George Farmer's boyfriend. Oh, sorry. Best friend. In my unprofessional opinion, according to one of my friends who typed in, and I told her I was going to use it. In my unprofessional opinion, George Farmer and Andrew Tate are full of shit. George Farmer has never criticized Andrew Tate's creating of broken homes, having babies with women he's not married. No, he had no problem with that. George Farmer never criticized him having these allegations of African around the whole transatlantic African, from Romania to the UK to this. No, George Farmer never had a word for that. All the things he said, George Farmer never said. George always said, oh, he's a great guy. Him and his brothers, great people. But do you know where George Farmer had a problem? Him converting to Catholicism, converting to Muslim, to Islam. No, George didn't like it. George says he thinks the way, the truth and the light is only for him to convert to Catholicism. So we are still looking to see how this ends. I think George Farmer's product during the white pill phase took a detour he did not plan for, and he's not very happy about it. Every time he's asked about it, he has to drink a glass of water because he needs to digest what's going on. Let's move to Russell Brown. Russell Brown is a new recruit, I believe, in my unprofessional opinion. He's a new recruit. Red pill, anti-establishment, leftist conspiracy theories. Black pill, massive legal and media pressure. He starts claiming the Matrix is attacking him, same like TATE.
Things were going great for Mr. Brand. He had successfully transformed himself yet again, a brand new cultural icon for a brand new set of people. But things would start to fall apart for him in 2023 when a Channel 4 documentary was aired giving details of indecent and emotional abuse alleged by 4 anonymous women between 2006 and 2013. One of these women was just 16 years old at the time and Brand was 31. The reports also noted that he allegedly exposed himself to crew members while working on Channel 4's Big Brother's Big Mouth and allegedly urinated in a bottle in full view of everyone while working at the BBC. As we are on YouTube, I won't go into the details of the main allegations, but they are pretty harrowing. Brand denied these claims and is quoted to say that the relationships were always consensual. A lot of his right-wing friends rallied around him, but he was forced to postpone an upcoming tour and his agent dropped him and released a statement that in part read, Russell Brand categorically and vehemently denied the allegations made in 2020, but we now believe that we were horribly misled by him. I'm not too sure what allegations from 2020 he's talking about in this, but maybe there was something from the Sunday Times investigation that I'm missing. YouTube then demonetised his channel under pressure from the British government and presumably advertisers, but his new home of Rumble resisted any attempts to get him removed from their platform. The BBC removed some material featuring him from their archives. He was dropped by charities that he was helping and the police began an investigation, with other women coming forward with alleged incidents dating back to 2003.
Then he goes to White Pill. He recently baptized and a shift towards Christian traditionalism and doing podcasts, now occupies the same media space as Owens, often sharing the same talking points regarding spiritual warfare and institutional corruption. But this man is Catholic or is Christian and all of that blue, haha. But this man will not stop doing OnlyFans podcast. This man's shirt has to be open. In fact, it has to be so deep. You have to be able to count all the hair on his chest for you to know that he's doing a podcast to talk about Jesus and how the corrupt media and institutions are. He will sit with his legs open. The tights are all showing out. But that is our Christian podcast. I think we should start calling them the OnlyFans Christians. Yeah, they are exposing the goods God bestowed upon them and they want to show the world that yes, I have tights and I have chest hair. You should see the goodness of God upon my chest. But this is the thing. The grand strategy here is spiritual populism. And on this same podcast, this man mentioned something. He said he can feel something is happening and he believes George Farmer is part of it.
This lead up, this part of this interview, places you in a very unique position. You're very much at the center of this moment. We've been talking about the increase in religiosity, interest in faith. You love the traditional Latin Mass, you're a Catholic. You're the most interesting man in the world, George Farmer. Where does this clearly sets you up for something very important. I mean, as we move deeper into this moment and we're talking about Catholicism, we're talking about extending the traditional Latin Mass, we're talking about conversations with Andrew Tate or what Ben Shapiro is talking about or Jordan Peterson doing biblical studies. I mean, a moment arriving for a renewal and interest in what we would call traditional Catholicism, I believe is ripe.
Yeah. I
just feel like something is happening. And whether that's in the next pope or the arrival of some new religious order or movement or something has to spark soon. I just kind of get this feeling that something majestic might happen soon. Do you get that sense?
Yeah.
I think you're part of it.
Yeah.
And I think you're part of it.
What is the grand strategy? Farmer is not just a donor or a husband. He is a structural architect, institutional delegitimizer, using the Farage method to make people distrust every institution, media, health, elections, everything. Then he comes in with an alternative ecosystem, which he is now going to pivot them towards an uncancelable method by making them what? White-pilled, traditionalist, Christian, and all that brouhaha. This is the final pivot, moving the audience from anger, which is the red pill, to faith, the white pill, by framing the cultural war as a spiritual war. Farmer creates a more loyal, high conviction audience that simply using political partisanship could never have ever tried. And the question on many of our minds will be, okay, if they turned Christian, isn't that a good thing? Yes, it's a good thing if someone were to leave from anger to despair into now being Christian and now realizing that you can leave everything into God's hands. The difference here is the weaponization of Christianity. These people are not just converting to these religions or changing their views to white pill because they have suddenly found God. If you've listened to Candace Owens these days, she's no longer only conservative. She says it is a matter of the left and the right because she has realized that, she is at the face of the white pill, where religiosity is currently the main ingredient of the grift. It is no longer about conservative values like they used to claim they were all about. And unfortunately, many of the things we look at them doing, it is what hurts to see that this spiritual rebirth is not just spiritual rebirth, but a strategic pivot, a way to find a permanent and uncancelable audience with traditional circles. Because once you claim Christian, you can do anything, which is why our darling Erica KIRK can lie to people and sprinkle a little bit of Jesus and everybody sits quiet and say, yes, mother. George Farmer is an institutional architect and he designed it perfectly. But then there are several things about him which we should look at and confirm that is this Christianity or is this something else? He said he started converting to Catholicism when he was still at Oxford, but it's the same damn time the man joined the Bollington Club. So the Bollington Catholic of George Farmer is not making sense. Yet his personal history and association create a stark contrast with the humility and morality the church preaches. So how can we take him serious? Another part is the Bollington Club paradox. Farmer was a member of the Oxford infamous Bollington Club, notorious for extreme wealth, elitism, trashing restaurants for sports. Critics point out the irony of a man championing traditional values or kicking against the elites like he had started in the UK before he had to run into the United States to start a new traditionalist Catholicism situation. Why, having belonged to a club defined by the debauchery of destruction of property and the Lord of Flies elitism? How we can't merge these two, George. Candace, we can't. Another part is the Farage allegations. We have had people like former associates of Nigel Farage and Farmer, such as a journalist from the Brexit area, who have characterized Farmer's political rise as a hyper-calculation. The accusation that his traditionalism is a strategic veneer for a very modern and very aggressive power grab in the media space. Talk less of the allegations of him groping him, touching him, and doing things to him that he did not like. So when you combine this with the Catholicism and the Christian veneer, it starts looking all crazy. And then when you look at someone like George Farmer, he's supposed to be this Christian man with all values stuck intact, right? Then the next minute he's associated to Andrew Tate and his brothers. They've been friends for a long time and he's never criticized anything Andrew Tate has done. Oh, he says he's a great guy. Despite being a family man with family values, Catholic, Farmer has been a vocal supporter and defender of Andrew Tate and even flew his wife. She was the second person to interview this man after he was arrested. And that is not all. She stood on her podcast, defended the man, tooth, nail, and everything in her. A man whose business was webcam modeling. Since 2012, he has been using women every day, allegedly. And alleged crime are fundamentally something that a Christian Catholic will stay clear of. Yes, if you've been friends with him, we're not saying, okay, you then abandon, but you should be able to say, I don't support that, I don't agree with that. But George Farmer can criticize every other thing on earth. He will criticize you, your mama, your cat, the roaches in your house, even that neighbor of yours who is nice. George Farmer will criticize, but you know one thing, George will not go near. He will not go near Andrew Tate to criticize him. Maybe the allegations of him having some blackmail on them are actually true, allegedly.
The newest one that has emerged is definitely my favorite. That Andrew Tate has blackmail on you. It's just like,
Top G.
where did the top G's got blackmail on you? They're like, this is why. I'm like, what is anybody ever talking about? I can count, I literally think on 5 fingers how many times I've even met Andrew Tate.
What do I know? Now let's look at Candy Baby, the traditional feminist. I called her that for a reason. I did a video on this channel where I looked at Candace Owens and wondering, is Candace Owens a traditional woman or a feminist in disguise? And we came to the conclusion that even if Candace Owens wants to insist that she is a traditional woman, we can also accept that maybe the most feminist thing she can do is to insist that yes, I identify as a traditional woman, even though every other thing I do looks or screams feminism. You can go watch that video. It's a beautiful deep dive. One of my finest moments, finest work of art. Go watch it. It's just like 20 minutes, not long. So you're going to enjoy it. Candace Owens represents a unique contradiction. She preaches a stay-at-home traditional wife, stay at home, make him a sandwich. I don't believe George Bullington Farmer has seen a sandwich from Candace Owens for a long time, while being one of the most high-profile, career-driven women in the world. The career and content gap. She tells women to prioritize staying at home, yet she travels the globe, runs massive media operations, and is the primary voice of her husband's household brand. This is the definition of liberal feminist success story, dressed in traditional outfits. But you know what? We are going to agree with you, Candy Baby, or let's say agree to disagree. You are a traditional woman, or like I would like to call it, a traditional feminist. Sue me. The next thing about Candace Owens is her defending the indefensible. Her defense of Andrew Tate and other figures accused of actual misconduct is seen. It's really calling the uncomfortableness in me. It's giving me secondhand embarrassment and cringe. How can a Christian be a team player with people of that caliber, people who are in that situation? The next minute, she is calling Harvey Weinstein on her platform and struggling tooth, nail, and bottom to make Harvey Weinstein stand out like a cleaner figure than he is. Candace always gaslit her audience into believing that Andrew Tate is innocent and shall be set free because he did nothing to anybody. She went as far as defending a convicted sex offender just because she wanted to what? Defame one of Andrew Tate's alligators, or how do they call them again? Accusers. That's how far Candace Owens was willing to go. Yes, but that is our Christian woman. How is it that she's prioritizing red pill solidarity over protecting of women? A Christian duty. How is she doing that? She signals that her political alliances is stronger than her religious convictions, because you cannot tell me that your decision to stand behind Andrew Tate and any other figure that has been accused, which you have stood behind and defended, is stronger than that Catholicism you baptize yourself in and which you are going to confirm in April, according to what you told us last time, from your Catholics to Catholics. I did a full deep dive on that. You can go watch it on the channel. It's very interesting. So how is she putting this together? Another one is Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate's conversion to Islam is widely viewed as a move for geopolitical protection rather than spiritual submission, because one thing you can see is that that man has not observed any Islam beliefs since his conversion for anything to save his life. He doesn't care. The haram lifestyle. Tate continues to promote hustle university, flaunt extreme material wealth, engages in flexing that Islam scholars label as KIRK or pride. Please, I can't pronounce that to save my life. It's spelled KIBR. KIRK. All right, let's forget about that. I cannot add that to my list of struggles in 2026. I have a lot of struggles. Another one is Christmas. He has been seen celebrating Christmas and maintaining Western secular habits while claiming to have found a true faith or true path in Islam. For Tate, Islam appears to be a tool for patriarchal authority, which he likes, rather than the spiritual discipline which he avoids. He loves some aspects of it, which is why he went for it. He couldn't go for Catholicism because Catholicism required him to get married. I'm not sure that man likes women like that, because the way he talks about women, it's giving. That's a man who said he has not spoken to his sister, his own sister, blood-related sister, because she is a feminist. So you let ideology separate you from your loved one, your sister. That is how you know these people are fucked up. Okay? Effed up from the beginning to the end, toes up, down, inside out, in my unprofessional opinion. According to my friends in the comment section, in my unprofessional opinion, this guy is inside out, effed up. And it is his father's fault. If you watch the deep dive on him, you understand what I mean. Another one is Russell Brand. Russell Brand's conversion to Christianity is perhaps the most scrutinized. Given the timing of his legal allegations, this is one thing. OnlyFans and chest hair is one thing that Russell Brand will not stop giving us. Despite claiming to surrender to Christ, Brand continues to operate in high-revenue, hyper-sexualized digital spaces. This man will not stop giving us chest hair and tights. His signature look, which is an unbuttoned shirt, and performative sexuality remains unchanged. This man has not stopped showing us chest hair. But never mind, he's Christian. Christian humility requires a death of the ego. But then, Brand's podcasting style remains entirely centered on Russell as a guru. Instead of pointing to the gospel, he using Christian terminology to bolster his brand as a persecuted truth teller. That is how they all end up. Him, Candace Owens, the George Farmer Burlington Club situation, they all end up claiming that they are victims. These people will have millions of followers of theirs terrorizing small YouTubers like us online, but they are the victims. Please, George Burlington Farmer, get your kids in order. Get your household in order. So what can we deduce from everything we have seen here? This is all a facade, a veneer of what a brand has converted to be. Before you could tell a celebrity is a brand, they represented certain things, they represented certain political opinions and stood for certain things. These days, they have converted all of that into independent media, allegedly mummies loose in their basement and those fighting the matrix. And they are now standing under the umbrella of Christianity or religion in order to gaslight you and come to you with the bullshit. Yes, that's all that is going on these days. So George Burlington Farmer, he got his Burlington Club playbook, gathered the Niger Farage situation, mixed it together, came together with a masterful playbook, and had done the Candace Owens playbook on this channel. You can go watch it because it's the same damn playbook as the Andrew Tate playbook, and it's the same damn playbook as the Russell Brand playbook, which is why I'm adding Russell Brand into this thing gently. As you can see me adding him into the George Burlington Club Association and Associates. I'm adding him there because he is giving me the same playbook. Please, if you find another person who is giving the same playbook and is associated to George Burlington Farmer or Candace Owens, please drop in the comment section like it's hot. Thank you very much for coming to the end of this. Let me know, did you finally get the essence of what George Farmer is out here selling? And there are some interesting aspects he also dropped during this thing, which I'm going to add to the end of this video. You can watch it and tell me what you think about this. That was my thoughts on this. In the next part, we are going to look at George Farmer's daddy. George Farmer's daddy is very interesting. And that will not be the final part, because in the next part, we are going to look at all the companies George Burlington Farmer has worked in and why he left and what George Burlington Farmer is now doing besides shepherding or fathering his wife's media empire. Like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, which will be sooner than later. Bye.
That's really I would say the biggest change in my last 4 years, and that's in part why I've become less political, because I'm just not. 10 years ago, I was super political. I was very, very political. I was deeply involved in UK politics. I was campaigning. I was, petitioning politicians to do this, that, the other. Fast forward the clock 10 years, and I'm like, okay, it's important. Don't get me wrong. Like, policy is important. I think it's good that we're doing all these things. But at the same time, like, I'm conscious that probably nothing will change, but the only thing that really matters, and whether or not we've really changed things, is actually whether or not people have come to Christ. That's really the biggest thing. And coming back to your question, which was about religiosity and like influences and religiosity, and see what God has in store for me and what God wants me to do. Helping my wife with her life is a big part of my life. We're a partnership, we're a team. She and I are a team together, and I think she would say that as well. And it's very valuable to me. Being a father is incredibly important to me. I have various corporate things that I'm involved in as an investor, on the board of, et cetera. Like I run, I sort of take care of a couple of companies to keep myself busy. My dad likes to make the joke that when he retired, my mother said, I married you for life, but not for lunch. And and sort of, sometimes I feel that way. I sort of had to go and take care of myself during the day. I have to make myself busy. But in 10 years' time, if I say where I want to promote Christianity, that's kind of really my main goal nowadays, that's why I don't do any political interviews anymore. I only do stuff like this. I only do theological discussions, because it's far more interesting to me. Like, how can I make Christ known in this world? How can I build out the church in this world? How can I bring faith to people who have none? That's kind of, I want to promote the Latin Mass. Right. I want to grow the Latin Mass. I want to grow the Catholic Church. I want to build out his church in this world. I want to make Christ known to people. Those are my goals. Kind of social democratic liberalism really is what they're wedded to. And so after a while, you become quite, as I said, jaded, like not interested in politics. And then after a while, you take the white pill. The white pill. The white pill is Jesus.
Would you take the black pill first?
I think most people do.
Yeah, we should break that down. People are like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. The black pill is
the red pill is leaving the matrix.
The red pill is when you become the conservative. Yes. Right. That's when you wake up and you realize that the whole world, the red pill is when you wake up and you see the fact that Naomi Osaka, who's protesting Black Lives Matter, is also sponsored by Panasonic and, Airbnb and all these kind of major corporate sponsors. And you're like, okay, this is nonsense. Like every corporate establishment in the United States is changing its Twitter profile picture to a pride flag. Yes. That's when you wake up and take the red pill. You're like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this is nonsense. Like, this is complete. This is like very contradictory. The black pill is when, a few years later, you've taken the red pill and you're like, okay, we can change it all. And the black pill is when you realize that actually you can't change anything at all, and both political parties are completely in it for themselves. Mm-hmm. The Republicans are just as corrupt as the Democrats. The New World Order, whether it be a conservative New World Order or a liberal New World Order, both of them are completely corrupt, and people are self-serving, they're self-interested, all that kind of stuff. The white pill is when you realize that the only thing that can really change things is Jesus Christ, and that's kind of, and that's where I got to a few years ago, and that's when I suddenly became very aware that actually the white pill was for me, it was the greatest change in my life, because you suddenly interpret scripture and you're looking at scripture and you're thinking, I never grew up a liberal. I grew up a conservative, and I never, quote unquote, took the red pill. Right. I was always, in many ways,
you grew up on the red pill.
Yeah, I grew up on the red pill, exactly. But you grow up on the red pill, you always see the world through that, that set of glasses, the hermeneutic of kind of conservatism. But
Who do you think sparked all this? Or was it just a technological advance that we could now stream directly and we didn't need networks? Or do you think someone pioneered this? Is it a Joe Rogan? Is it, you know, I mean, how do we get to this moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do we get here? Yeah, I don't know whether I have an answer to that. I think that there are various influencers who definitely kind of put their foot on the gas and kind of accelerated the whole process. I think, you know, somebody like Ben Shapiro, you know, definitely was a first mover in the space. I think that
Split 2. Split pace, 16 minutes, 12 seconds per kilometer.
But he was somebody who really helped kind of the YouTube influencer grow. Like the whole you know, definitely was a first mover in the space. I think that Jordan Peterson, you know, definitely had a huge influence. He probably wasn't a first mover, but he was somebody who really helped kind of the YouTube influencer grow, like the whole class of people as YouTube influencers grow. I think there's also, you know, I would give credit to somebody like Nigel Farage. You know, Nigel has basically been and I've known Nigel for many years, and, you know, he's a great personal friend, but Nigel took what was an unpopular topic and a boring topic from being a kind of, you know, irrelevant mundanity of the UK political scene into being a global discussion.
Yes.
And he did it earlier than anybody else.
Yes.
And his viral clips were kind of,
exactly,
you know, really, really big. I mean, the first viral clips I ever watched in my late kind of teenage years, like 2007, 2008, 2009, were of Nigel Farage, you know, being like, "Who are you?
Yeah.
You know, you look like a Swiss bank account clerk. Who are you?" You know, when he's standing up in the European Parliament insulting Herman von Rompuy, who at the time was the president of the European Commission, I think. But, you know, he really did a lot for kind of making virality a thing, and that then became in and of itself a whole kind of, I don't want to say an industry, but it became much more of a thing. You know, it became like, how can you create the viral clip?
Right.
How can you replicate what Nigel Farage is doing?
And who did it best in America?
Well, Trump, of course, yeah.
And I kind of wonder if that moment is linked to his ascendancy. You know, and so many people, in a way, by having a man run for president and be president who was doing these viral things in America, in a way it kicked down a lot of walls for people to then come around and say these things that were politically incorrect, because someone like your wife Candace or others who are developing and adding things to their platform and learning new things, in the traditional media that was not allowed. You sort of had your job, you had your specialty, you stay on this path. And by having our own independence now, there can be drift, there can be development, and then people can follow along on that, or they can check out.
Yeah. Somebody like Nigel, and then becoming Trump, and et cetera, like the whole movement gathered speed and then allowed for people to do whatever they did. You know, and shatter the media shibboleth. You know, that was kind of the big thing.
Right.
Like we just broke down those walls, and now you look at it and, you know, X percentage of the population of the United States no longer trust CNN. You know, X percent of the population no longer watch cable TV because they get their news from, you know, the Daily Wire, you know, whatever it might be. You know, they've completely changed the way they consume news. You know, and that's kind of really, that's been the best result in many ways of kind of the media revolution. And yeah, of course, there are organizations out there intent on changing the way that traditional media is still consumed, you know, for example, Newsmax or OAN or somebody like that, you know, who is trying to change the way that broadcast news. You know, he and I have talked about this before, and you know, his brother is Tristan is, like, by the way, great guy. I love both of them. You know, they're great guys, really like nice people, fun people. And that's the irony, is that like people look at them and they're like, you know, oh, he's not a nice guy. Like, no, he's one of the kindest people you'll ever meet. You know, he's one of the kindest people you'll ever meet. And his brother's a Romanian Orthodox Christian. And we've spoken about faith before quite a lot because, as I said, that's where I am in my journey as well. And I've said this to him, and I'm like, look, you can talk about what color is your Bugatti, but at the same time, you know, if you're doing it without the concept Bugatti is at the heart of everything you're doing, then you're in the wrong place. You need to be coming at that from the perspective of faith. Like, should I be even buying a Bugatti? Should I be doing whatever I'm doing?
Right.
That
well,
faith,
what does this Bugatti mean?
Exactly. Like, what is this? What is it all in purpose of?
Right.
You know, is it in glorifying God, or is it in glorifying myself? You know, and so we've had this conversation before where, like, he said, you know, we're on the same mountain, we're going to the same peak, and I'm like, no, we're not. You know, we're going to different places, because Jesus Christ is not just a prophet. He's not just some great theologian.
He's the Logos.
He's the Alpha, he's the Omega, and he's everything in between. You know, and that is without a doubt the most important thing that anybody can learn in this life. You know, is that Jesus Christ. It's not a test. This life is not a test. It's the one run we get at eternity. And eternal life or eternal damnation is what comes after this. And without Christ, that's a great question. How do we get here? I don't know whether I have an answer to that. I think that there are various influencers who definitely kind of put their foot on the gas and kind of accelerated the whole process. I think, you know, somebody like Ben Shapiro, you know, definitely was a first mover in the space. I think that Jordan Peterson, you know, definitely had a huge influence. He probably wasn't a first mover, but he was somebody who really helped kind of the YouTube influencer grow, like the whole class of people as YouTube influencers grow. I think there's also, you know, I would give credit to somebody like Nigel Farage. You know, Nigel has basically been and I've known Nigel for many years, and, you know, he's a great personal friend, but Nigel took what was an unpopular topic and a boring topic from being a kind of, you know, irrelevant mundanity of the UK political scene into being a global discussion. And he did it earlier than anybody else. And his viral clips were kind of, you know, really, really big. I mean, the first viral clips I ever watched in my late kind of teenage years, like 2007, 2008, 2009, were of Nigel Farage, you know, being like, "Who are you? You know, you look like a Swiss bank account clerk. Who are you?" You know, and he's standing up in the European Parliament insulting Herman von Rompuy, who at the time was the president of the European Commission, I think. But, you know, he really did a lot for kind of making virality a thing, and that then became in and of itself a whole kind of, I don't want to say an industry, but it became much more of a thing.
Welcome to Clinical Trial Blazers, a podcast from Parexel Biotech. This isn't just a podcast for biotech.
You know, it became like, how can you create the viral clip? How can you replicate what Nigel Farage is doing?
And who did it best in America?
Well, Trump, of course, yeah.
And I kind of wonder if that moment is linked to his ascendancy. You know, and so many people, in a way, by having a man run for president and be president who was doing these viral things in America, in a way, it kicked down a lot of walls for people to then come around and say these things that were politically incorrect. Because someone like your wife Candace or others who are developing and adding things to their platform and learning new things, in the traditional media, that was not allowed. You sort of had your job, you had your specialty, you stay on this path. And by having our own independence now, there can be drift, there can be development, and then people can follow along on that, or they can check out.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody like Nigel and then becoming Trump and et cetera, like the whole movement gathered speed and then allowed for people to do whatever they did, and shatter the media shibboleth. That was kind of the big thing. Right. Like we just broke down those walls, and now you look at it and X percentage of the population in the United States no longer trust CNN. X percentage of the population no longer watch cable TV because they get their news from, the Daily Wire, whatever it might be. They've completely changed the way they consume news, and that's kind of really, that's been the best result in many ways of kind of the media revolution. And of course, there are organizations out there intent on changing the way that traditional media is still consumed, for example, Newsmax or OAN or somebody like that, who is trying to change the way that broadcast news is consumed in the United States or overseas, like GB News in the UK. But the digital media landscape has completely changed the way that people consume news. And that's for the better. It definitely is for the better, because the bastions, the safeguards, the gatekeepers to those traditional institutions were corrupt, and CNN was corrupt. It is a corrupt organization. MSNBC is corrupt. All these organizations are deeply, deeply corrupt. They protect the narrative in a way which makes people drawn to them. It's like, how can we protect the narrative to make you believe what we're saying so that you continue to believe the narrative? That's exactly what they're set up to do. Look at their coverage right now of like the scandal around the Biden family. Whatever one thinks of the Biden family, whether one's a Democrat or a Republican, I think it's the bank account statements would testify to the fact that they have clearly been paid by foreign powers. There's no argument about it. The House Oversight Committee has subpoenaed statements. The subpoenaed statements reveal that the Biden family.
For years, I used to say my dad is quite well known in the UK, and for years I was my father's son.
It does give us the opportunity to hear from the government how they will put the victims of perpetrators like Epstein and gangs ever longer custodial sentences. Persecution against Christians. A young lady has been left with a damaged body. So what if under 18s can work full-time and pay taxes? And that they felt intimidated. How the recent tragic news of the death of Virginia Giuffre demonstrates the long-term effects of that my sister had actually suffered serious sexual abuse as a young girl. Family services work in prisons, 2 charities. My lord.
And now I've become my wife's husband.
I just want to be clear. Anything happens to me, blame the Zionists. Like 1000% blame the Zionists.
From a broken family plagued by alcoholism, poverty, and shame, to building a massive global trading empire and becoming the legendary Mr. Copper. In a previous video, we did a forensic deep dive into his raw past and his brutal personal struggles. But today, we are taking the next step. We are looking directly into his grand entrance into the House of Lords, screening the exact legislative courses he helped successfully pass.
Tragic news of the death of Virginia Giuffre highlights the long-term effects of child abuse. I should declare an interest, as my sister suffered serious sexual abuse as a child. Her entire life thereafter was dominated by its effect, with 3 serious attempts by the age of 20.
And breaking down the ones where he completely failed.
I'm just passing on what Labour MPs have said to me, that they felt intimidated.
Finally, we are going to dissect the fascinating generational intersection and deep ideological divergence between Lord Michael Farmer, his son George Farmer, and his daughter-in-law Candace Owens. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I hope you absolutely like it here. Please remember to share, like, subscribe. A massive thank you to all those who have joined our channel membership, and a special shout out to all of the amazing old channel members. My name is Allegedly Nemo. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. the ascent of Mr. Copper. Lord Michael Farmer's entry into British governance follows a tradition, yet highly scrutinized path. The first thing is this: there is the wealth engine. Farmer did not inherit noble wealth or noble blood like some of his counterparts, but he built a massive, immersive fortune trading base metals, dominating global markets to earn the moniker Mr. Copper. Between 2011 and 2015, he served as a co-treasurer of the Conservative Party, infusing over £6 million in personal donations into the party's apparatus. In 2014, Prime Minister David Cameron of the Bollington Club, the same club his son George Farmer Bollington are also part of. You should remember this for later. Very important. So Prime Minister David Cameron in 2014 rewarded his fiscal loyalty, nominating him for a life peerage. On September 5th, 2014, he was gazetted as Baron Farmer of Bishopsgate in the City of London. While critics decried the appointment as establishment patronage, which I don't know who are those who are still surprised by this, Farmer's maiden speech on October 15, 2014 was meant to shut the haters and all those who did doubt him quiet. It stunned not only the chamber members, but those who watched the speech afterwards. Bypassing commodities and finance, he delivered a deeply personal address detailing his upbringing by severely alcoholic parents, announcing that his legislative career will be singularly dedicated to social exclusion, family stability, and prison reform, a promise he has really kept so far. Chapter 2, the structure of the British Parliament and House of Lords. To evaluate Lord Farmer's record, we must understand the distinct operational rules of the House of Lords. To understand Lord Farmer's legislative battle, you have to look at how the British Parliament is structured. It is divided into two distinct chambers, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The House of Commons is the lower chamber made up of 650 members of Parliament or MPs who are directly elected by the British public. This house holds the ultimate legislative authority, controls public finance, and is where major government laws are born. Then we have the House of Lords. This is the upper chamber, which is commonly unelected. This is the house that Lord Michael Farmer occupies. Rather than facing voters, its members are appointed life peers, bishops, and limited number of hereditary peers who sit on the red benches for life. The power dynamics of the upper chamber. Because the House of Lords is unelected, it wields influence, not absolute power. It operates under the constitutional understanding that it cannot permanently block any bill passed by the democratically elected House of Commons. Instead, its primary mandates are to act as revising chambers, scrutinizing legislation line by line, running deep dive expert community inquiries, and delaying flawed laws to force government to think twice. Peers like Lord Farmer can introduce private member bills or PMBs to champion specific social causes. However, without explicit backing from the government of the day to grant its government time, these bills rarely pass into law. In reality, peers use these bills as tactical high-profile tools to capture the Treasury's attention, apply political pressure, and force government concessions.
Can my noble friend confirm that this government will use the lever of trade to improve rights to religious freedom?
Chapter 3, Forensic Legislative Ledger. Lord Farmer has been an exceptionally active legislator. We are going to look at a comprehensive audited screening of the legislation he has sponsored, amended, or championed, divided into outcome, statutory mission, and the mechanics of their survival. Number 1, Acts of Parliament. The first one is the Child Support Collection, the Domestic Abuse Act of 2023. The mission of this act was to empower the Child Maintenance Service, CMS, to step in, directly collect payments from a non-resident parent on behalf of a resident parent if there is evidence of domestic abuse. This eliminates the need for direct, traumatizing financial contact between abusers and victims. Anyone who watched the previous videos will understand very much why this is a very vital and paramount point for him. His mission in this world is to ensure that families are stable. And if you watch the first part, you will know why this is the bone of his bone and the depth of his heart. Farmer introduced this as a PMB in the Lords. It succeeded because it garnered absolute cross-party support, directly addressed a loophole in the wider Domestic Abuse Act of 2021, and received fast-track government backing in the House of Commons, achieving royal assent in June 29, 2023. The Domestic Abuse Act of 2001, the mission of this one was to legally recognize children who witness or are exposed to domestic chaos and abuse within the home as victims in their own right rather than mere bystanders. Why this succeeded? Farmer utilized his position in the Joint Committee on the Draft Domestic Abuse Bill to fight for this clause. It passed because his extensive committee data proved the cyclical nature of family trauma, forcing the government to incorporate his wording into their headline legislature. Number 2, the frameworks and policies adopted by executive mandate. The first one of this is the Farmer Reviews 2017 and 2019. The mission of the Farmer Reviews, it was commissioned by the Minister of Justice. These former parliamentary reviews investigated how maintaining strong family ties prevented reoffending amongst male prisoners in 2017 and female offenders in 2019. If you watch the first part of this video, you saw that clip where he mentioned the percentage, and he actually went forward to take a research done by a particular organization to use it in order to ensure that he passed this bill, so as to help, because he understood from research also that those who received visitors as offenders, they actually were less likely to reoffend, and that is why he makes sure he fights for those who are in these situations. Why this bill passed is because why not a standalone bill? These reviews transformed statutory prison operation. The government fully accepted the recommendations, implementing family performance metrics across the entire UK prison state. And he has a lot of things he is fighting for when it comes to prisoners.
The trend is towards ever longer custodial sentences. People convicted of murder now spend 60% longer in prison on average than in 2001. No balancing act is being attempted and no rehabilitation. Justice cannot be driven by vengeance. So why is the government arguing for ever longer sentences?
The Family Hub Network rollout 2019 to present. The mission is to establish fiscal and localized early intervention centers nationwide while struggling parents can access health, social, and relationship support. Why it succeeded is because Farmer co-founded the Family Hubs Network to lobby the executive branch directly. Rather than waiting for a bill, he successfully pressured the Chancellor to allocate hundreds of millions in central government funding budgets, achieving his objective through fiscal policy. Very smart. The third bill is the Private Members Bill. This bill is the Support for Infants and Parents Information Bill 2024 to 2026. The mission is to legally compel local authorities and central governments to publish clear, consolidated metrics and updates regarding the Start for Life system, ensuring parents are actively told what early childhood support is available. The status and mechanics. This bill successfully passed all its hurdles in the House of Lords and completed its first reading in the House of Commons. It currently awaits further scheduling, battling for limited parliamentary time. If you've ever watched anything about these parliamentary houses and how it goes down there, you can see how much they struggle for time to ensure that they push for their bills and whatever they are there to fight for. It's always a struggle. I don't know. If you think that you fight for time, you need to watch these guys go down in the House of Lords, House of Commons, in any parliament around the world. Any parliament around the world, it's always a showdown, and it's so interesting. Every time, it's like a cinema for me. It's like reality show for me watching them. It's always so interesting. And sometimes the fight. Okay, the next one is the front-loaded child benefit bill, 2021 to 2023. The mission was to amend the child benefit regulation of 2006 to allow eligible parents to choose to receive significantly higher benefit rates during their child's higher stressful first years of life, that is 0 to 3, balanced by a corresponding reduction in payouts when the child is older. Why it failed? It reached the committee stage in the House of Lords, but unfortunately, it collapsed because the Treasury overwhelmingly opposed the structural complexity of the front-loading welfare cash flows. The next bill he really fought for was the Family Relationship Stability Impact Assessment Target Bill of 2018. The mission was to legally mandate the government to publish family stability targets, tackling how many children grow up with both parents, to enforce every single government department to run a statutory family impact assessment before altering any tax and spending policy. The bill was blocked by libertarians within the government who argued it represented overbearing state interference in personal choices and added undue bureaucratic red tapes to public functions. Well, regardless how you see these bills, one thing is for certain with Lord Michael Farmer. He promised to fight for family, to fight for prison reforms, and to fight for children. And he has kept that promise so far. Every time you can go to his X page or everywhere where he published his activities in the House of Lords or where he talks about these things. Now, whether you agree with his stance or not is something we can have a different conversation on. Today, we are just going to look at what he is working on since he got into the House of Lords. And if that ties to the life he grew up with, and you can see that it does, from his childhood, which we looked at, right up to his adulthood, there is one thing that has always softened the man's heart. If you want to get Lord Michael Farmer talk about family stability, you will have him at family. Chapter 4, the intergenerational matrix. That is, I want us to look at the divergence and convergence of Lord Michael Farmer and his son George Farmer. And when we say his son George Farmer, it's a package deal which comes with the very Candace baby. The interplay between Lord Farmer, his son, and daughter-in-law Candace Owens represents profound ideological case study, which we have looked at in previous videos. But in today, I want us to look at it in terms of just their small ideological points and where they converge and where they absolutely diverge. Let us look at the points of absolute convergence. The first one is the supremacy of the nuclear family. Anybody who knows Lord Michael Farmer knows his primary goal in life is to stabilize the nuclear family. Lord Farmer's legislative soul, the core of his family stability bill, is the protection of the nuclear family. This is the exact cultural hill upon which George and Candace have built their media platform, consistently arguing that the destruction of the traditional family structure is the root of Western decline. So this is a place where both of them, they have ideological marriage. Every individual is different, but sometimes families and individuals have some places where their ideas converge. This is where George Farmer and his daddy actually do. The second one is the traditional Christianity and pro-life alignment. Lord Farmer's legislative battles against abortion expansion and assisted dying are mirrored entirely by George's academic ideological background and Candace's hyper-visible embrace of traditional Christian doctrine. One of the times I saw Lord Michael Farmer battling in the House of Lords was to prevent the bill for assisted, because he thought that was a bill that should not pass. He thinks people should not be permitted, given the permission to think they can take their life when they feel they want to do so. And he said one of the times when he was going in to talk about that bill, one of his members of the House of Lords cornered him and told him, please, when you're talking about this bill, please don't mention God, don't mention Jesus, because people are going to think that you're coming into this with an ideological bias. And he said he felt bad because if we are putting God out of the conversation of life and death, then we are missing a bigger picture. And he said he really felt bad that he was told not to use that, because for him, like we've said in the first part of his video, he said it, God comes first, then his family, then we can talk about work. And so far you can see he built an empire from that philosophy, which means it actually works for him. Now, speaking of the traditional Christianity and pro-life alignment, Christianity, no doubt, they have a little bit of difference in that Candace Owens and George Farmer are now Catholics, while Lord Michael Farmer is still a Protestant. And then when it comes to the pro-life alignment, Lord Michael Farmer's beliefs are more towards maintaining law, maintaining the order of the community to ensure that there is order in the community. Meanwhile, Candace Owens and George Farmer, they come from the religious side and the anti-left side of the argument. If you look at the way they come into the conversations in both religion or Christianity and pro-life alignment, they have different angles, but they have the same destinations. I just wanted to make that little distinction there. Then let's look at the war on digital moral decay. Lord Michael Farmer aggressively speechifies in Parliament to restrict online, citing it as an engine of mental health degradation. George Farmer and Candace Owens routinely echo this exact crusade, framing mainstream internet as a coordinated psychological weapon against children as well as adults, the young adults we have now. So you see that these are aspects where they have alignment. Well, I know there are many other points, but I thought to list these three. If you have any other, please list it in the comment section below, because these conversations are very interesting to me. I always enjoy reading your comments. They are my favorite time of making a video and posting. When I'm reading your comments and your contributions, please just be respectful of one another. I want us to look at the points of stark divergence between George Farmer and his father. And when I say George Farmer, like I've said, it's a package deal with his wifey, Candy Baby. The anti-establishment schism. George and Candace operate as scorched-earth populist disruptors. Their entire brand relies on attacking institutions, undermining mainstream political structures, and cheering for dismantling of deep state. Conversely, Lord Farmer is the establishment. He bought into the system, works quietly within an unelected parliamentary committee, relies heavily on the civil service, and uses the machinery of the state to solve social crisis. Even though there are times when some of his policies are actually for the state to remove its nose from individual lives, but you see that he is still using the machine of the state or the establishment to work for that good. For example, he wants the state to remove their nose from the assisted death thing we were talking about. He wants the state not to pass that bill, not to make it legal, and also to not decriminalize. So you see that these are things where he uses the state towards his mission. But Candace Owens and her husband, they are anti-establishment. And that is where sometimes people find the debauchery of George Farmer. George Farmer, you are establishment. You are British elitism, and you want to talk to the British youth out anti-establishment. Sir, go sit their ass down. The next thing we should look at when it comes to their differences is the state funding paradox. Lord Farmer's bills, such as his family hubs and the infant support bills, rely on state-funded, taxpayer-backed government initiatives. Even though sometimes he will look for ways to substitute or rally some funds in order to follow up some of these projects or whatever he has in mind, but he heavily relies on the state to fund most of his initiatives, and he relies on the state to approve what initiative goes through and which one he should stand with in public. Candace Owens and George Farmer do the opposite. They rather go against what the state brings. Inherently to the American-style libertarian capitalism, view state welfare apparatuses with deep suspicion, frequently calling for the slashing of government intervention. And they ensure that whatever the state has passed as bill or whatever is law, they check it, double check it and say, you know what, I don't still trust it. So you see, they are the anti-establishment. Meanwhile, Daddy is establishment and he works within the confines of the establishment. They don't care what the world wants to put when it comes to, oh, let's follow the state and this. No, they want to weaponize what is popular now, which is what? The internet. Like we said in previous videos, George Farmer had realized a long time ago that he does not need a seat in the House of Lords like his father or in any parliament in the UK. What he needs for his agenda to be pushed forward was to build a media empire, pick the right pundits and put them out there, and everything he wants the public to believe is what they'll believe. Someone like Lord Michael Farmer, if you check his X account, it's less than a few thousand people following him. Candace Owens has almost, I don't know, it's 6 million or 10 million, I don't know, it's in the millions. So you see the difference between the social media influence of someone like Candace Owens compared to someone like Lord Michael Farmer. When Candace Owens make one post, it will be millions and millions, sometimes 20 to 100 million people viewing that one post. When Lord Michael makes a post, you will find maybe 10,000, 2,000, the maximum will be like a couple of dozen thousands. That is the difference between establishment, rhetoric, and influence and the kind that Candace Owens and her husband have built, which is the modern social cultural war decibel method, which is what? High pitch. It is what? Chaos. They learned it fast using the George Bullington Farmer method plus the Nigel Farage combination added plus the American style bombastic political method. You combine that together plus Candace Owens in the mix. Imagine, Americans are going through a lot. You just have to put that together. They are going through a lot. Institutional red line, the anti-Semitic. That is one of the difference that many people have spotted between Candace Owens, George Farmer, and Lord Michael Farmer online, which was something that came to light in 2024. The ultimate point of divergence occurred when Candace Owens engaged in highly controversial public commentary regarding Israel, and which many people thought were conspiratorial, some thought were anti-Semitic, and it caused her to leave the Daily Wire eventually. I don't know, maybe at some point we have to ask ourselves, why is it that every time Candace Owens is leaving one place to the other, it always has something to do with the you can see why, probably maybe that's why the woman doesn't want to hear anything about the because if you look at her rhetoric from the time she worked with Turning Point to go to PragerU, from PragerU to Daily Wire to now become independent, you see that there is a commonality. It is always anti-Semitism that is always a common denominator for why she loses her job in most of those cases. Just food for thought, though. I'm not saying that it is such a big, but just food for thought why we were having this conversation. This discussion online triggered an immediate, very serious crisis. So, as a result of this, Lord Michael Farmer, who serves as the Christian vice chair of the Council of Christians and Jews, had to make a statement. Like we said in the previous video, he came outright and he made a complete public statement saying that a member of his family is saying something that sounds like this. He stands against anti-Semitism. He works with Jews. He loves Jews. And if you look, those of you who followed his story, you can see he has a very good relationship with Jews. He said those are most of his bosses before he he became the boss, Mr. Copper, were usually Jews. So he has this great relationship with them. Candace Owens has often had a very rocky relationship with Jews, even though when you look at her background, from the time she worked, from the time she created Brexit, from the time she's working, you see that there are always a few Jewish influences or sponsors in her life, somehow in the background, but somehow they always fall out. So maybe we have to ask, who is the common denominator here? Or is it that the common denominator is the problem? We have to ask these questions. Guys, just asking questions here. What do you think? Is it that Candace Owens is too toxic for the Jews, or is it that the Jews are too toxic for Candace Owens? What's going on, right? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section. The parallel path of Lord Michael Farmer and George Farmer reveal a structural evolution in how political power is consolidated, because many people tend to view Lord Michael Farmer's family reign to end with him, and then they start George Farmer's reign to continue, start from him and continue to Candace and their children. But that is not how institutional power is regarded. It is usually regarded from the old money right down to the current generation, which is why Lord Michael Farmer had to come out when he did to make that statement, to ensure that his family's lineage, his family's life, when it comes to relationships, it comes to certain things, is still very safe. There are even methods in which George Farmer is now currently involved in the family dynasty to ensure that the family is not affected financially by what he and his wife has going on in the United States. Because when it comes to old money, when it comes to wealth and power, these people always want to make sure that they not only maintain these structures, they want to ensure that they consolidate it and move it to the next generation using the next best thing that comes up. For example, in future, children of Candace Owens might wake up and there might be a new evolution in the world of politics, a new dynamic, and one of them is eager to also go the political route. They will still make sure to use that method of new technology to use politics, but they will ensure one thing: the power of the family, the finances of the family are maintained and protected every method possible. Lord Farmer is the old guard institutionalist. He played by the classical rules of the 20th century influence, accumulated raw capital through global trade, bankrolled the ruling party, secured an unelected peerage, and quietly, meticulously shaped structural policy behind closed doors. And some people might say, oh, his son has completely derailed from who his father is and has disgraced him. And I'll ask you a simple question. Who paid for George Farmer to enroll in the Bulletin Club? Lord Michael Farmer. Do you think he did not know the history of that club when he paid for that tuition? He did. Whose name was used for him to even be accepted there? Lord Michael Farmer's name. So you see, Lord Michael Farmer understands that the new generation has to utilize and also evolutionize what politics has to give in the new age, which is why he paid for his son to go and attend the Bulletin Club. He knew that's where the monies reside. And then remember, Cameron, the same guy who is linked to the Bulletin Club, is the guy who suggested Lord Michael Farmer to be added in the House of Lords. Please go think about that, then you can come and talk to me. These families understand what's afoot. They just ensure that they play the games very securely to maintain their power, their finances, as well as their reputation. George Farmer and Candace Owens are the new guard media populists. They realize that in the new internet age, changing laws from the inside is too slow. Lord Michael Farmer can tell you that. They bypass the slow climb entirely, constructing an alternative digital ecosystem through our tech apps like Parler, international media tours, and viral engagement loops designed to captivate millions instantly. Like I've mentioned before, when Candace Owens makes a post, Hundreds of millions of people are viewing it across social media apps. This woman is so popular. The President of the United States, she is part of the chambers in his thoughts. But then, I'm not sure the President of the United States ever sat one day and thought about Lord Michael Farmer. No, because these are people who are not operational in the new political medium. Candace Owens is powerful enough to pull a population. It's the same power that Charlie KIRK had. The guy could pull a population, something his wife is struggling to do and has not been able to savor the same charms of her husband. Like they said, you can marry the man, but you can't marry the charm. Unfortunately, their operations function as an innovated cultural pincer movement. The father works deep inside the halls of the Westminster to embed traditional family structures into the legal code of the state. Meanwhile, the son and daughter-in-law whip up the external populist media storm, cultivating the exact anger, countercultural vote base that demands those very same traditional law. It is a highly sophisticated, multi-tier mutation of modern-day conservative power, and many people are watching it as if there are two parallel kinds of structures. But in my very unprofessional opinion, this is a family consolidating its power from one generation to another using one method to another. Remember, the rich make sure that they maintain their power, their finances, and reputation, whatever means possible. And sometimes they have to play by even the rules they have set, and they have to play sometimes against those rules. That is just the way of life of the rich. Thank you guys for coming to the end of this video. I would like you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Did you think we were going to get here? Did you think we were going to get to a point where you're finally realizing that Lord Michael Farmer is a sponsor of the George Farmer and Candace Owens Bulletin Club chaos? Or do you still believe that, nah, he will not be anything to link with that? But my question here is this. If you think that he doesn't like any of that chaos, why did he enroll or pay for his son to enroll in the Bulletin Club? And if you don't understand why the Bulletin Club is such a crazy idea for a man like Lord Michael Farmer to have enrolled his son in, I encourage you, I have a full 1 hour deep dive of everything that the debauchery of what the Bulletin Club is, and how it is the direct opposite of who Lord Michael Farmer is. So you start asking yourself, why did he enroll his son into such a club? Are we missing a point? Let me know, guys, what are your thoughts in the comment section? Maybe there is something about the British elitism that I'm missing here. Please educate me. But please, ladies and gentlemen, like, share, and until next time, I am allegedly Nemo.
Well, this was fun. Let's do it again.